Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Cross Commission Podcast, episode 186. It is August 13th, 2026. Summer is approaching its end. Safe would say it'll be Christmas before we know it.
It's already Labor Day,
Before the season will be here.
Yeah, literally. Yesterday was the first day, maybe still after 8 o'clock for you in Maryland, but yesterday was definitely the first day post that sunset at before 8 o'clock. It was definitely all right,
it's
starting to wrap up.
It's a dangerous proposition. that first, when you get out of work and you see the sun already down is it's a long walk. That's a long walk to the car.
Because sometimes you run after work, and it's usually still not midday, but there's lights. I gotta go to Wawa after I take a shower. Got time for that. Now it's just already sun's coming down. It's oh man, dude.
They got us. Big sun. Big sun is.
Yeah, we got the eclipse yesterday. They're just stealing our sunlight, Jake. They're just stealing our
Oh man. Well, we are back. It's our first pod in I think about 2 weeks. Our last one, we decided to try and fix 3 Division I programs. Rutgers, Hofstra, and Navy. You can take a listen to that on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast platforms. This time around, we're going to open up the mailbag. You guys sent in some questions. We have some questions of our own. We're going to tackle those. And then maybe with a little bit of time left after that, we'll dip into some off-topic conversation. Ryan is in California. Out in Hollywood. So
it was bound to happen.
So no, even though he is closest to, even though he's in Hollywood, since he's not here, we can, talk movies and, all that stuff. So it's the 2 of us. You sent your questions. We're going to answer them. Some of them are about lacrosse. Some of them are about whatever it might be. And we're going to get to it. All right, let's start with the question we've been getting a lot the past 2 months, and a question to which I do not have an answer, but it was asked, and so I have to answer. This came from, I know who it came from, but I don't have it right here on the replies. All right, here we go. This came from CK at CK Stevenson on Twitter, longtime follower. Thank you, sir. Or ma'am. Who's the next Maryland offensive coordinator going to be? Well, as I said, this is an answer to which this is a question to which I do not have an answer. I don't know. I thought this would be wrapped up about 2 weeks ago, or somewhere around there. 2 weeks ago was about, not even a month ago was a month. It's 2 months basically now since Mike Phipps announced he was stepping down, getting coaching. It's been like a month or so since I think the position, the listing position closed when they post those public listings.
They stopped counting. They just did it 30 plus. Yeah.
So I guess if any of you were interested in submitting your application to be Maryland's next offensive coordinator, I think maybe
post is still live. I just sent you the link. Still live.
Oh, all right. Maybe I'll get in there. Oh, good, great. Here's everything I would change about the offense.
Episode 78.
Let me just provide podcast clips of.
Best part is best consideration date, July 14th, 2026. So
that's a month. Yeah. So it has to be in the next classes start in 2 weeks. So it's got to be, I figure, in the next 2 weeks here. the fact that it has gone on this long leads me to believe, or at least gives me the feeling that it's not going to be who I thought it was. Which my feeling was it'd be Mike Chanenchuk probably, because I just figured if you just follow how these hires have usually gone, what Maryland's usually done, he checked the most boxes. He's an alum, obviously. He's done a good job at Stony Brook, and before that, he was at Marist. If you remember back when Marist had those good offenses in the was it Marist? He was at a Sacred Heart. Pardon me. He was at Sacred Heart when Sacred Heart had those really good offenses back in the late 2010s. He was a part of that. Then he took Glardy with Stony Brook, and he's done a good job there. So I thought that kind of was the one that made the most sense to me. The other alum options were like John Haas of Penn State, which was always probably going to be a difficult one, just considering how long he's been there. And Penn State's obviously right now kind of you could argue, I guess, the program kind of at the top of the Big Ten. So I don't think it's going to be him. Logan Wisnauskas is another alum option that's out there. I feel like, again, if it was going to be him, why would it not just have happened already? Doesn't feel like something you wait 2 months to do. Maybe I'm wrong. But it gives me the feeling that it's not going to be any of those names. Along these lines, I would not rule out a sitting college offensive coach. Just because maybe if there's someone they really want, they there's negotiations, you kind of gotta make your pitch. However, a non-alum sitting offensive coordinator, I always was kind of skeptical would be the hire anyway. We did this. We talked about this like 2 months ago, I think, when we did the coaching carousel pod, and I was like, look, I would love, for it to be Jim Mitchell or Neil Hutchinson at Harvard or someone along those lines. I was just skeptical that's going to be the case. Maybe it will be, but I don't think so. So again, I can't say this for sure because this is just like, Maryland's they're not a faucet of information, but it's never like this tight-lipped to where like nobody really knows what's going on. So you can't say for sure. It's just my gut though, is it's not either of those two options, which then gets us into, all right, if it's probably not a sitting college offensive coordinator, either that was an alum connected to the program or, somewhere else again, non-alum. Who could it be? And at that point, we're looking at like different sort of buckets. We could be looking at coaches outside of lacrosse, like who aren't working right now. Outside of lacrosse, this could be if you had Ryan Moran stock in this, like that is an option, I suppose. Mike Murphy, like, something along those lines. Could it be a PLL option? Like maybe a current player in the PLL or like someone who's coaching in the PLL is like an assistant. I looked at some options there. I think Drew Snyder is a former Maryland alum who's like an assistant in the PLL right now, or has been in the past. Again, I'm just spitballing here. Jared Bernhardt was on staff at Maryland a couple years ago. As like also along, I should mention, because this is news. I didn't mention his name when we did the pod 2 months ago, but I had been contemplating him as an option. Was Mike Daly, who was on Maryland staff in 2025, as like a kind of third, fourth, assistant player development type role. He is now the head coach of VMI. So Mike Daly's back in the game. I didn't think it would be Mike Daly just because that would be like a wild change up to what Maryland, him and Tills are like on polar opposite kind of, directions in terms of how they think about offense. But again, he had been on staff. He was available. It kind of popped into my head. It's not going to be him. I mentioned Jared Bernhardt was on staff a couple years ago. He's currently playing in the PLL. it's a possibility. His brother coaches there, obviously. His other brother coached there a couple years ago. So I suppose that's the option. The only other thing I think of, and this is moving up my list of possibilities, is that they go with the direction Hopkins went in a couple years ago after John Crawley left for High Point, which is
John Grant.
oh no, yeah, no,
no.
I guess he is, yeah. Which is they hire a additional assistant coach, and he works with the offense. So like Hopkins hired Chase Yearlin to fill the vacant coaching position that Crawley, when Crawley left. Chase Yearlin works with. I'm not saying he doesn't work with the offense, but Pete Milliman runs the offense. And so that's, I feel like, the option that like I'm leaning maybe more towards now, is that they fill it with somebody who maybe isn't a, specifically offensive, dedicated coach. It's somebody who could maybe fill another role on staff, who could help with the offense, chip in, but Tillman primarily does it. That's what I feel like is probably most likely. But this is, you said this when we were talking about in our DMs. This is very unlike kind of how these searches for Maryland have gone. When they hired Phipps, they got it done in like 3 weeks. Bernhardt left for was it D3 Colby College, I think, and like right around Thanksgiving, and Phipps came in like the week before Christmas. So that turnaround was quick. When Bernhardt got the job for Vermont, that happened relatively quickly, or at least in a couple weeks. The Bobby Benson one happened very quickly, though it had to, just because it was literally like 2 weeks before the season. But they got that done, I think on like a couple days, honestly.
It was amazing. Chris, I did the pod the next day. It's like, why not Benson? It's like, let's go.
So this stuff usually happens pretty quickly, and also you usually know who the hire is going to be. Phipps was the obvious name after Bernhardt left. I honestly thought it was going to be Phipps when Bernhardt got it, to be quite honest. But when Bernhardt got it for a year, he was an obvious name there. When Jesse Bernhardt got the defensive coordinator job after Connery left, that was like, it was like a fait accompli. That was very obvious. So these things usually you know who it's going to be, and they happen relatively quickly. This has taken 2 months, and we don't know. I mean, I could not tell you with confidence anybody at this point in time. I just spitballed some names, that are out there, but I couldn't like seriously, be like, yeah, it's going to be this guy. So yeah, to your point, we're in unknown territory here. This is not how these things usually go, which doesn't mean that, Tillman doesn't have any idea what he's doing. He could be thinking about it, quite seriously. I assume he is. That's how he does things, but it is uncertain is how I would put this, which is not a usual place for Maryland to be in. Okay. And so, yeah, I think that's the best way to kind of put it. One, we don't know. And two, you said this is very unfamiliar territory.
Definitely. Right. And it's like concerning the longer it goes a little bit, because like usually it's almost like they got this. It's especially early Tillman, getting the transfers in for players and then replacing coordinators, not the callous way, but it was almost like, yeah, you go, I got some money, or I'll get some money. And then it's just like, they just keep it rolling. This is just different. Doesn't mean it's going to be a bad hire, but I do feel like leverage is being lost. Like this happens in June or summer when it normally happens. Like coaches maybe who would think about like a head, because you and I were talking about like kind of the move now is get a head coach or someone with real head coaching experience, or a current head coach come over, and then you kind of have like more of a multi-pronged attack, and if someone who's already the responsibility of head coach and just like probably give you more energy than a coordinator. So if you did this, if it happened more quickly like normal, it's like maybe there's like, oh, I didn't really like how the last season ended. Oh, John Tillman called me. Maybe you can kind of like maybe get somebody to like bite, and then there would be that pejorative way, provocative way, but just like someone maybe like in June or late May, where they're thinking about to recap the season, like another year here, and then you get a call from Tillman like maybe better check. Like now, like I definitely think it's hard to get like any sitting head coach. It really is like the dawn, of the new fall ball, the whole new season, their school year. So just like kind of like you could say him like, yeah, I'm interested, but I'm already here. Like you gotta have to maybe give a better offer. It's just kind of leverage, but like who knows? Maybe tells like just brings the press, comes out as a surprise beard like yours, just out of nowhere. And he just goes, "Hey guys, as what I've diagnosed the situation with an acute case of everything's fine." And then he just goes back and he still doesn't announce. Just like that, you can beat. But that's what I'd be concerned if he comes out like really like not just a 5 o'clock shave, but like a real beard, like that, like the hair's not good.
Ryan Day, Ryan Day,
not tucked in shirt, that's when I'm like, all right, let's get stage intervention. But like, yeah, the whole thing was weird. Like they haven't made the tournament. They missing the tournament was probably like kind of big thing. Like I just they had the record. They had the current record, like getting close to breaking. I think Billy Hop has the record, right, for most consecutive tournament appearances.
Yeah.
And then
Maryland had the active longest.
Exactly, the current active, exactly. And then to lose that, and like after pundits like us are just like, is this 2022 again, Jake? Just really thought there was going to be kind of just another even a run of the mill Maryland season would be so much better than what happened this year. Just like a run of semifinal, a run of mill Maryland season, losing the championship game. That's what they kind of bad way. Like they lose, but it's just like barely gets that far.
I mean, we talked about it. I also swore off talking about the season ever again, but like we mentioned, like when people were asking, like, well, maybe were they overhyped or yada yada. It's like maybe that's true. Overhyped when you were number one in the country. Overhyped means you are like the 8th seed, where you go on the road in the first round. It doesn't mean you missed the tournament.
Yeah,
entirely. So yeah, I mean it was going to be a off season, it was going to be the most significant off season. I said it, like, I don't know if I said this on the pod, but I think this off season, how it played, I mean, and we're not going to know the results of it and kind of the effects of it until next season, and really probably the next couple of seasons. I think this is the most important off season they've had in his tenure, because there's two directions this goes. There's, can he and can they as a program diagnose what went wrong, what is kind of behind the failure this season, but also on a broader macro scale, what has kind of been what has led to the slippage compared to where they were in 21 and 22. And again, it's and this is why they've always been as good as they have been, is because they've never been complacent, they've never settled, and they've always been kind of at the cutting edge of changes. I always go back and mention 2019, they lost in the quarterfinals to Virginia. We've mentioned it a million times, to use Urban, yada yada. It would have been very easy to sit there after that season and be like, well, look, we hit the ball didn't go in the net. We should have been in the Final Four. Great season, what have you. That's not how they approached that. They approached it as like, we were up 5 goals in the fourth quarter and we let Virginia hunt us down. And they made the offense that we saw in 21 and 22, they started implementing that offseason, and they started putting that into place. They started changing a lot of how they, ran the program. It was a lot of the more aggressive style that we saw them play with in 21 and 22 was built out of that, the feeling that they kind of sat on the lead and they couldn't, that killer instinct, they didn't really have that in that game. And that's what took it from an incredible run that they had. I mean, they made the Final Four like every year from 2014 to 2018, and then could have done it again in 2019. Took it to an even higher level in 21 and 22. And if you look at this group, this senior class, did they have a very successful, by all kind of almost everybody's standards, group? Yes, they made 2 Final Fours, 1 championship game. Almost anybody would give for that. However, I think we can also kind of say, if you look at since 22, there's been lots of moment. On the whole, it hasn't quite felt the way it did. Not even just in 21 and 22, because obviously that's an unsustainable kind of like you're never going to be that good, over a prolonged period. But even compared to where it was from, 2014 to 2018, like they were a 4 seed in 2023, lost in the first round. 2024, they were 7 seed. 25, obviously, got a 2 seed, but this year missed the tournament. 2 years where they don't win a tournament game, 23 and 26. Obviously, we talked about the offense a bunch. We did it when, I forget what pod it is we did. Maybe it was the coaching carousel pod where we pointed out, on the whole, the offensive numbers the past 4 years show a significant decline compared to where it was the previous 10. I mean, they had a run there for like 10 years where they were in the top 10 of offense every single year. They've only done that the past 4 years one time. So this kind of drop off, I'm not saying it's been precipitous. It was precipitous this year, but on the whole, they're still a very, very good program. But they've gone from number 1 with a bullet to like in the top 5 in the kind of, hanging around with some other teams. That's kind of what happened to Hopkins with Petro and Cuse with Desco. It doesn't happen immediately. It just starts to tail off. And you kind of, and I think this is like a crucible point of like, all right, can they figure out what has gone, what has led to this sort of tailing off? And can they get it back pointed in the right direction and make more Final Fours and compete for more titles? Or is it going to be closer to what we saw with Hopkins under Petro and Cuse under Desco and Stars at Virginia, where it's not that it's, they're going to start missing the tournament every year, but it's never quite the same. You kind of lose a bit of luster. You lose your kind of aura, for lack of a better term, intimidation factor. I think that's been a big part. I mean, they used to carry around with them, especially in Big Ten play, like just an intimidation. Like they had teams beat by like 3 or 4 goals in some, like when they got on the field in Big Ten play sometimes. Like it was just like there was a, teams like off the bus. They just, they were ahead of you. And now in the Big Ten, they've been worse in the league the last 4 years than they've been out of the league, to be honest with you. They've lost to every team in the Big Ten in the past, couple seasons. And so this to me is like a big point. It's a point where like it'd be very easy to look at this season and be like, we had injuries and we lost a lot of 1-goal games. Like, what if the Hopkins game? What if the ball doesn't hit the pipe? What if the Collison goal doesn't count? It's like, yeah, we probably make the tournament. There are lots of games and moments for this team. The Princeton game. What if they had the chance at the end of the game? Craddock makes a save. What if we score there and go to overtime and win? We could do that all day, but if they're going to get back to being the program they were, they have to be more aggressive in how they look at it. And I'm not saying they're not being that, but it's, to your point, that's the importance of this offseason. And when you are here 2 weeks before fall ball or, classes starting without an offensive coordinator, it does leave you a little like, okay, you kind of just want to know, I mean, look, they brought some, they got a lot of young talent coming through. They brought some important transfers in. Who's going to be these guys' coach? Or how are they going to be coached? Like, these are all things that could they certainly get somebody in the next 2 weeks and hit the ground running in the fall or in, January before the season starts? Certainly. Again, as we said, they got Benson in, but that's the thing. It's like, that was much different. Bobby was walking into an offense that had Logan Wisnauskas and Jared Bernhardt, who, knew each other back their glove. Like, I mean, he was walking into a much different situation where this is a young group coming in. Like, they got young guys. Like, this is a different job than like a lot of, what they've had. And yes, they brought in they brought in some transfers like Garrett Haas, but that's new pieces to the program. It's a lot of new faces that are going to be some familiar still for sure, but this is the most turnover they've had in a long time. And that's why I think, not having certainty breeds, a little bit of discomfort, I think, if you're in, probably fans' position like myself.
I mean, the Bobby one, like now in hindsight, everyone would say, oh, it's obvious. Like, I don't want to say I was brave to go on a limb and say that he was a good choice, but just jokes aside, like it was the familiarity with that, just the two programs. I think others in the chat, but I definitely remember you like, it does feel like Tillman can't have a yes man, kind of like when it's like, feels like not challenged, but someone like respects enough that their opinion is would be welcomed and not just superfluous to what we're going to do or redundant or you like some that you won't kind of respect like. And the numbers since 2023 are starting. First off, shout out to always our friend of the pod, the cross reference. But if you choose the by rank for the year by year, obviously the 2022 is just amazing, just number one across the board, offense, defense, that face off save, just rare to see it. And then it's almost like the offense kind of looks like what we talked about, like Ohio State. It was definitely the weak, like defense efficiency, like they had a one bad year, 2023, where they're 15th. Otherwise, they were second, 8th.
And that year, 23, I'll just hop in. That was the year. Remember, Zaps like broke his hand.
Yeah.
Like right before the playoffs, like they had Mac got hurt that year, missed that entire season. Again, is that so? Like if you go back and I mean, I don't know exactly, but I remember this. I'm pretty sure they were a top 10 defense before their last like 3 games of the season. Because like the Army game, they gave up in the tournament, they gave up 14. They gave up like Michigan, scored like 17 on them in the Big Ten championship game. Yep. Like that changed rapidly once their best defender got hurt with 3 weeks left of the season.
Sorry, goalie was out as a early game. Yeah, like it was a not calamity of injuries, but there were more injuries than Maryland, who was blessed for like multiple years of like kind of being injury free. Face off, just since 2023, first 16th bit of an odd season, and then 22nd in 2026. And even saves, like not like kind of falling off the cliff, but we always talked about the Big Mac year, 2023, they're 17th, but 2024, 7th, 2025, first, in 2026, 13th, not top 10, but like not, like abysmal. So it's just definitely the offense, and it seemed like they were able to get away with it. We were kind of like, I could see your frustration growing in certain years, but like at the end, and then like especially the year where they kind of made the championship games, like it's just like it's kind of like the debt crisis. It's like you just almost screaming like, "Yeah, we can't the Saints, we can't say like, yeah, you're right." It's just like, but the good sides are rolling, and then all of a sudden, I don't say like this again. You're right. It wasn't falling off a cliff. It was just like coming up short, like passes that just were like a half a second off, like just stuff that was working, in 2022, but it just like it wasn't happening here. It was just enough for them to fall apart. But you could see like, it was your kind of point of like, things doesn't change. 3 out of the last 4 seasons, you're in the 20s for offensive ranking. 2025, you're 8th, and still, I don't think many people like remember 2025, like the way that even 2019 or 2017 or 2022, obviously, and even 2021. To an extent, the second best offense in the country. So, like, no one's going to be like, the legendary 2025, Maryland offense. I'm saying? I'm not getting not to disparage them, but, because the title gives a credit to the team. But, you just don't want to get a trend because, like, trends can, like, as you said, kind of accelerate quickly, and then all of a sudden it's just, like, really, kind of go off. So, Tillman, definitely trustworthy in his selections in terms of like who he's able to get, but this does feel like more of a important hiring than because it could be like it could be post Petro or maybe Corrigan. Corrigan, not that he was falling off, but like there was a bit post where they were like it's kind of in the wilderness type thing, and then like kind of flipped it back. Now then Nordine's back on top. Hopkins, Petro had to glorious 2015 season, and I still say maybe he was going to turn around in 2020, but the trend there was like decent enough, pretty good to good regular season, and getting blown out in the tournament. So it's just like eventually just unsustainable. So again, Tillman, I don't see that happening here. I always kind of trust his judgment, but I think it was a blow, like just something like a little bit like invincibility, like going from preseason number 1 and other people thought, I like this Maryland team to now losing, not just losing and just like not making even like the Big Ten final or not even making a tournament at all. Like, does definitely everybody fails occasionally, but yeah, this seems like a big one. Like, just not making the tournament at all. Like, it's sneaking in. Like, I think if it even be, even if Phipps left, like, if there was like a first round exit, yeah, just definitely the vibes would just be better. Yeah,
I mean, no, I mean I think that's an interesting point. Is like, say if they got in the tournament, they were going to play Richmond in round one. They were going to be where Duke was. I mean, Duke would have got in, as well, but Duke would have. If they made the tournament, and their path was Richmond and Georgetown, do you think they would have made the Final Four?
Yes.
And I agree. I think they would have. And it's like, but I don't think that eliminates anything that we've been talking about. I don't think it changes any of it. And so now that's not me saying that like I don't wish they had made the tournament. But it's like I do think this kind of, I don't say a reckoning because that sounds exaggerated, but like this sort of like I think it needed to happen. Like
sometimes you got to raise interest rates. You know what I mean? Like if inflation's really bad, you got to raise interest rates. No one likes it. It's hard on everybody, but yeah, for the good of the currency, somebody's got to do it.
I think you hit the nail on the head, and this is where if it comes out that it's going to be Tills, primarily run the offense, and then maybe they bring in, I don't know, another assistant who can help out in some ways, I will feel it won't alleviate my concerns. That's not me saying it can't work. I mean, we saw the Hopkins example. We look at 2025, the first year after Crosse left, the offense definitely took a step back. Granted, that also came with like losing tons of personnel. This year, the offense for Hopkins was a real positive. And they had a pretty good season all around. They finished 13th in adjusted offensive efficiency, which was just checking by. It was pretty much right in line with where by ranking it was Milliman's third best. By the actual percentage, it was fairly similar to what they had in 23 and 24. They also look set up for next year to have what I think could be the best offense they've had under him. I mean, there needs to be, not if you're, we've talked about this a bunch when it comes to Hopkins. The next step for the program is very evident. In offensive efficiency in Milliman's tenure, they've been 17th, 34th, 11th, 11th, 17th. 25 actually wasn't as bad as it, look, they only dropped to 17th and 13th. They've basically been sitting in this like 10 to 20 range for, his entire tenure. They got to find a way to get, an elite offense. But like it wasn't as if, Milliman doing this and bringing in Chase Ullin, it wasn't as if it's, been a failure. It's worked fairly well. So it's not that Tillman couldn't do it and have it, work fairly well. And also, look, they could make a hire where I'm like, awesome, that makes me feel great, and it could not work. Like this stuff can go that way. But the direction it's trending, I'm not sure I'm going to be sitting here whenever the hire is made and be like, all right, I feel great. Which again doesn't mean that it's not going to work. Like again. This reminds me of some of the conversation we saw on like Twitter towards like in our notifications towards the end of the season where it's like Tillman just I would do like these long threads or be like, this is what's not working for Maryland, and people reply it's like, yeah, Tillman just doesn't know how to let these guys play, and it's like, all right, well, like he has won like 2 national titles. It was like the pancakes and waffles tweet where it's like, no, I said they need to make changes. You said he doesn't know how to he doesn't know how to coach. It's like that's not what I said.
It's different thing. Entirely different things.
Entirely different things. So it's like he does know what he's doing. Like again, 4 years ago they did have like one of the best offenses of all time. So like definitely if he's figured things out and he thinks he's got the answers also. But I'm with you. I think you hit the nail on the head. He's when you have a coach like that who is as attention to detail oriented and focused on so many aspects of the program and is as clearly as look he's regarded as the best tactician in the sport for a reason. when you have a coach like that, you do need, I think, another coach on either side, defense or offense, who he trusts and who their advice is really regarded as, again, yeah, someone as a peer in some ways. And I think, yeah, Bobby was seen in that way. Like he trusts Bobby and he regarded him incredibly highly. Jesse Bernhardt, I think, has definitely got to that point. Mike Phipps is a really good coach, but I don't think it was ever, I don't think he ever trusted in the same way that he did with Bobby. And that's why to me it was like, some people would, blame Phipps. And I'm like, it's not his fault, so I'm not saying he did as good. I'm sure he probably, thinks there are things he could have done better. Like it's when it doesn't go well, everyone shares in the blame. Like it's there, there wasn't one cause for why it didn't work. But I think, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. There's got to be, that's my feeling, is it needs to be someone who can, kind of challenge it. Will that be the case? I don't know. But again, maybe it could be someone who's been a head coach, maybe who's not working right now, that comes in, and that could be someone who maybe, kind of fills that role. So we'll see. All right. Let's Lars.
That was amazing. Oh, maybe that's it. That's why it's taking so long.
Lars is like just. I don't even know what role. Just I don't even know what job he would have.
You know that meme of like the Agamemnon standing out is not from the movie, but it's like an AI just standing in front of the kid, like that's just Lars just waiting for like to be hired to get back in. Oh man, but that would be amazing.
Yeah, what role does he play? I don't know. He's here.
Utility coach. Yeah, just floating.
He's doing whatever. He's just doing stuff.
Right on his feet, hanging out with the face-off guy, doing a little bit of drilling with the goals.
He's got the stick.
Oh, always has it. Let's go.
Oh man, that'd be something. All right.
Just a Schwarzenegger meme. 2 minutes. You son of a bitch.
That would totally change my vibe around. Like every time I'm saying right now,
we back up. You've been allowed us to be back up.
You've never been this back. Oh man. All right. Our good pal Mark Hart at Fieldy Stick has a couple questions for us. We're gonna dive into the first one here. What is the latest news on selection criteria changes? How are you feeling on the entire situation now that we're a few months away from that bomb dropping from the Lars-led committee? This is talking about the Powerwise proposal, all of that. Here's what I can say. As of now, if there will not be a change to the selection criteria in 2027. If the Lars proposal, the NCAA would need to vote on it, kind of get it through. It's based on, what Lars kind of talks about in that article, and I think the people involved. I think they definitely seemed like they were ready, and they were pretty confident what they had. I just don't. I think honestly, I'll be honest. I'm sure that I think while they're ready, I think it would probably be. How do I put this? It would be ill-advised, I think, for the NCAA to make a move now. When teams are already putting schedules together, I think changing because the selection criteria, if it changes to the Powerwise proposal, would be a significant change. It would be.
If they do it, they're like, well, 2 seasons from the time they announce or something like that to give people grace period and stuff. There's no way.
I think it would have to be. I thought we would see it just based on the momentum that it felt like was moving towards. And we'd seen the Powerwise proposal when we'd seen the MPI talk had been around for quite a while. But it felt like towards the end of the season, that's the momentum it was going. But I just feel like even if the NCAA makes a decision and approves it, it would have to be for 2028. I think 2020. Safe from your point of view. Johns Hopkins is playing the entire ACC in 2027. I mean, they have they're not playing Notre Dame, but they're going to play Duke, Syracuse, North Carolina, and Virginia, and then throw in they're going to play 5 Big Ten games. That's like 75% of their schedule is going to be against ACC and Big Ten teams. That's a schedule that will be very highly, we looked very well upon by the RPI in those metrics. I mean, look, we did this game kind of like 9 months ago, where I think I remember I said on this podcast, if Maryland wins 8 games, they're going to make the NCAA tournament. Well, they won 7. Had they won 8, they would have got in. Based on the schedule that like Hopkins is putting together, they might win 7 games and make the tournament. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm just putting it out there now. If you play 9 games against Big Ten and ACC teams before the conference tournament, and throw in whoever else they might play, but the PowerWise proposal, while it would still reward that, it also dings you much more for losing games, and it would. I remember, I think Hopkins was one of the teams in the kind of like mock PowerWise, rankings we saw. They were one of the teams like most dinged by it. So yeah, I just don't think, even if it comes into play, I don't think you could do it for this season. It would have to be for 2028 at this point.
Oh yeah, there's committees. People got turf. The things got to be approved. It's under our purview, like that kind of stuff. So definitely, probably something in the horizon that could very well, become official. But don't see anything on the dawn of the new school year like being dropped like this. So kind of agree with Jacob there. Like really interesting to see how it impact, what teams would do with scheduling, maybe that changes the way some teams pick others, who they pick. But yeah, I kind of agree. Don't really see it on the immediate horizon.
Safe, what are your what do you think about it? The kind of change. My initial thoughts when I saw it were that I kind of worried a little bit about the importance of head-to-head was clearly a massive factor. I think they even in Lars, when he did that article, he mentioned like the example of High Point in 2019, who beat Duke and Virginia, I believe, but missed the NCAA tournament. And he said in there, I think he mentioned like when they did that scenario, High Point would have made the tournament as an at-large off the basis of those 2 wins. When you compare that to the RPI, High Point was rated much lower. I think they were like 18th or 19th. So the head-to-head seems like it would be a pretty significant weight. I think also, again, just the actual win-loss record, of like losing games would ding you. Like kind of what we've seen of recent, where like a 7-6 Maryland team could be the last team out, on the basis of kind of the schedule sort of component of how that feeds into RPI. Those were 2 kind of significant changes that I saw, which I was a little up and down upon. On the one hand, I understand the head-to-head part of it. Like I get that when in the High Point case, when they beat 2 teams like that, it does feel a little. It's like that's kind of what we ask of those teams, is like we need to see you beat elite teams, and if you can beat elite teams, then be like, your numbers, your metrics were not as great. That feels a little more, that I get that point of it. I also understand kind of the point of like, that teams aren't punished for losses enough. And we've seen this a bunch. We talk about this every year when we do this. The teams, if you win non-conference, I mean, Duke is a great example of this in some means, where in some ways it felt like losing those games to ACC teams kind of was more of a reward than a detriment. And it's not just Duke this year. We talk about it all the time. This happened with the Ivy League in 2022. It happened if one conference dominates in non-conference, and then they bake the cake. It's baking a cake. The cake rises by the end, and when it's done, you can go. There were some years where Virginia went over in the ACC and made the NCAA tournament. In the Ivy League, it happened where you had 6 teams get in. You had teams that missed the Ivy League tournament get in because losing conference games, if your conference is elite in non-conference, doesn't really hurt you. In some ways, it actually can benefit you the way it plays. So I see that point of it as well. On the other hand, I'm also like, I guess this gets to my overall maybe. It's like when there's no standardization of schedules in college lacrosse that we have it, where you have some teams play 11 games and some teams play 14 or 15. And that kind of makes me feel like it's difficult to me to be like, well, you were 7-6. We got to ping you for that. It's like, well, some teams are 7-6 and a 12-game schedule, and that schedule's a bear. And some teams play 15 games and they've got, they got 4 or 5 games at the bottom that are kind of just like, okay. Like, I don't know that it's really illustrative of your actual quality. When if there were a standardization of schedule, if we could do that, everyone has to play X amount of games. How you want to do it is up to you. You can play midweek games. You can play earlier. You can start later. But when there's no standardization of schedules, some of that stuff with head-to-head and the, kind of win-loss record worries me a little bit.
I mean, I'm open to a lot of things. I was like, because you can have these events as the NCAA stands considered like at any time during the school year, right? Like that's why like basketball is, crosses over the. I was like, well, maybe you have like 2 games in the fall, like real games that count, and then allows you to have a much more balanced schedule. Start the season later if you want. In the spring, you could do a midweek game, and then have the weekend off because, that's just the midweek was on. And now that you have more flexibility in the weekends, you can have an off weekend more. Like that stuff, I would love to see more. The standardization of just having the same amount of games, like it really is because it really is now. Like I can understand why people want to make that move because kind of now it is a racket. It's just like everyone plays the right teams, and sure you lost, but you lost to a team that's going to play. Everyone's playing the same. It's almost like kind of like 3-card Monty. Like as long as you just don't fall below 500, like you're like an outlier, I guess this year. But the top teams, like as long as you don't fall outside of 500, you're usually going to make the. Then you have the surprises like Duke and Notre Dame in 2022. Then one thing about High Point, I know like there's just like people talk, put out poems like as if they're Achilles, just talking about like this High Point team, this legendary. They lost to St. John's.
They did.
Like they lost
That's
to
true.
Jacksonville
That's
in their
true.
own conference, and then they lost the conference championship game to Richmond by 8. So like, great win against Duke, big time, win against, but like to then just be like, a team like that, they'd be Virginia too. So like you have 2 big wins that should carry over your entire season.
They were. They were all honestly.
Richmond. If Richmond lost 2 more games that were as bad opponents as these, like losing Notre Dame's not, no one's going to crucify you for that. But like if they did lose to St. Bonaventure, and then like lost to St. John's, and then it's just like, and then like and then they had the Notre Dame losses, 3 losses. Like there's a chance, and one of the conference losses was in the conference tournament. Like Richmond's not making the tournament. So it's just like
but I guess the argument is not like
no.
Should they have made the tournament? Do you think if they had lost, they shouldn't have made it?
If they lost to a St. John's level team, and their losses weren't to Notre Dame, like they beat. I mean, they're doing things odd because like that in this world that is a good loss, but like. If they lost to the calibers, because that's the thing, they did Richmond, St. John, High Point last in 2019 didn't have a good loss. They had all horrible losses. Honestly, like
that's they were like the most. I think this is a point worth pointing out, and I think some of the people in the selection who are working on this proposal have mentioned this. Most of the time, it's going to be the same. Like, there's only so many teams in the mix. Like this again, what we talk about. There's 75, 76, 77, whatever teams in D1 men's lacrosse. 50 of them are not in contention really to make the NCAA tournament as an at-large. I mean, here's how many teams are really in contention. There's 6 Big Ten teams. There's 5 ACC teams. There's 7 Ivy League teams. That's 18. I think at the most there's 25 teams who can make the tournament as an at-large. Like, that's probably so we're talking a third. A third of D1 can make it as an at-large. Once you get past teams who just aren't going to be good out of that mix, there's probably, there's going to be 7 or 8 teams out of that who just aren't going to be good. We're whittling the pool down really quickly here. Most of the time, it's going to be the same. That doesn't mean there shouldn't be changes, for the record. But I think that is one thing that's worth noting. High Point was like Duke this year and High Point in 2019 are like the ultimate outliers of this process. Most of the time, that's not really the case. I guess maybe you could throw Notre Dame in 22 in there, well, but like when you're really looking at teams that were like true outliers in terms of their resume, there was Duke, who did almost nothing, but the metrics worked out and they hit an inside straight of results down the last week of the season. And there was High Point, which had they beat the number 2 and 3 teams in RPI. I think it was, or they beat 2 top 5 teams and they lost 2 teams way out of the. Now, here's what I'll say to the High Point example. Again, it's an outlier, but here's what I'll say to that. I value wins. I do think High Point beating 2 top 5 teams is pretty serious business. If you beat 1, okay. Beating 2, that's pretty serious. Here's what I'll also say. I don't know. I think High Point maybe would have got in that scenario. However, it's worth noting that in the power-wise proposal, I think like 37% of it is based off your power rating. So it's like your results, like how your results, how you won by 8 goals. Okay, that like moves you up compared to when you lost. Yada yada. The RPI in some ways actually protects against High Point really being punished for those 2 losses that they had. Because it's to your point, I'd have to go back and check here, and I'll actually text somebody because they probably will be able to help us out with this. We've talked about this. The RPI splits it. 20 up is a quality win. 21 down is a bad loss. But it's everything 21 down. The teams High Point lost to in 2019, to your point, I'd have to go back and check and find. Hopefully, I can find it. The RPI in 2019 in a moment. Those were not teams like 23rd and 24th. Like, to your point, St. John's and who was the other one they lost to? Jacksonville.
Yeah,
those teams were down there. Like we both talked about this. Losing to a team in the top 25 should not count the same as losing to a team outside the 40s. It should work in a very similar way. I'll just try and find the record for that situation. 2019, they lost to Jacksonville, who was 6-9, and they lost to St. John's, who was 4-10. So I'll just tell you right now, like those teams are probably outside the top 40 in RPI, maybe even outside the top 50. In some way, the RPI did protect them in that regard from being like, it treated losing to, Penn State that year. I don't know if Penn State was, I'm just giving an idea, or not Penn State. Penn State, that's 2019. Penn State was number 1 in the country. It treated losing to Rutgers that year as probably like the same as losing to Jacksonville and St. John's, which is they were not the same. Those are not the same thing. So this goes both ways. I think you made a good point there. Like, yes, the RPI is in a lot of ways the level is the deck is stacked against these teams, but in that specific instance, it also kind of helped them too. The fact that their bad losses were treated just the same as everybody else's when the actual quality of the team you lost to, and to be fair to the power-wise system, it does. There's no because there's no buckets the way the RPI is used. If you lose to a team that's 55th in the power rating, that's going to give you a hit. Whereas opposed to losing to a team that's 21st, and I think that is a positive. I do think that's a good thing. Is when we're talking about, when we mention things that I've always believed should change regarding the RPI, I think it's too rigid the way it's set up. If anything, I would add another bucket. I'd add 21 to 25 in there as a quality win. I just stretch it to 25. And then I think you should, if we're looking at bad losses, there needs to be a bit of, there's there's no nuance to it.
No, I like the gradations, because I think 1 to 20. You could even talk me into 20, 30, and then 30 up. That's bad losses, and 30 down, I guess, is bad losses, and that 20 to 30 range is kind of. And I would love for that to be that, maybe that criteria that they talk about presently, just after 21 and lower, that's just kind of a bad loss. There needs to be a little bit of grace. And then again, but you and I've been talking about for a few years now, pretty much 30% chance to make the tournament as is, right? It's 28.7. And it's the highest of any Division I sports, just men's lacrosse. How many bids there are to the actual number of teams?
It's 23%.
23.
What? It's 18. It's 18 teams out of 77. I think we're at.
Yeah, like I said, I was maybe doing some previous years when it's lower 70s, but still I think the number one is not again easiest in relative terms, but for the amount of teams there are and the amount of bids there are, that it is math wise the best of any of the major Division I sports. Because
and look, we're going to mention this. If the SMU thing happens, which I would put as more likely than not that it will happen, based on how the NCAA establishes the parameters, they're going to have to add another automatic qualifier because the ACC would be a conference. That would necessitate expanding to, at minimum, 20 teams. 20 teams would get you to, at a 78, would get you to exactly 25%. Now, I know the NCAA doesn't want to go above, the NCAA doesn't want to go above that 25%. I think it's kind of the mark they don't want to, however, I'll be honest. I'll just put my cards on the table. I would rather go to 24 than 20. 24 out of 78 is a lot. That's that's north. I think it's it would be 24 out of 78 would be, it would be a 31%. I don't know if the NCAA would want to do that. Personally, I think it makes for a better tournament. I think just giving the first 8 seeds a first round bye as opposed to doing 4 play-in games.
Yeah, it's more elegant.
It also looks, the bracket is much more easier to understand too, which I think that's for the best. But it's that's where we're at. All right, let me just see if I have this. High Point was 20th in RPI in 20. Yeah, they were 20. They were 20th. Next, it was Rutgers was 21. Then UMass, Bobby Mill, Air Force, Princeton, Marist, BU, Drexel, Hobart, Lehigh, Navy, Browns. Both those 2 teams they lost to were outside the top 30. Just as an idea. I think there are. And here we go. I have the link. All right. Jacksonville was 41st. St. John's was St. John's was 58th.
Yeah, dude, St. John's is bad.
That's tough. That's it's not great. So I'm open to. I'm not again. I have kind of, having learned more about the process and more about having learned more about the ways in which they've the work they've put into it. Even beyond learning more beyond the initial USA Lax magazine, talking to some people about it. I'm more open to it than I was. I came in kind of initially skeptical, but I know that they've stress tested a lot of scenarios. And I also I think them having the ability to change the weights on it potentially, I like that. If the NCAA gives them the opportunity to kind of keep tinkering with it over time, to be like, all right, we looked at because the RPI doesn't change. Like there hasn't been significant changes to the selection, and I mean, this is I think a big problem that people have with the way the RPI works is that the way in which they've evaluated the teams has changed. It's very obvious, but the actual criteria itself hasn't. The criteria is staying the same, but it feels like the way in which teams are being evaluated is changing year to year. I mean, we see this year where it was like, it felt like some of the things that honestly the bracket didn't stand up to a lot of logical scrutiny. And that to me is to me the big issue is that the criteria you have does not change, but your interpretation of it appears to change every couple years. That's not good. I think that's the biggest problem that winds up having is that makes people lose faith in the process. Even if the process itself isn't necessarily, or like the criteria itself aren't necessarily bad, and even if they get to the right destination most of the time, but the process is not good. And so I do think that the powerized system can, or whatever they choose to do, can alleviate some of that. One, it's just it's a formula. You publish it and people look at it on, wherever. So in that regard, I think that's a good thing. But I think if they have the ability and the latitude to kind of continue to work at it, then I think that could be a positive. So I'm more open to it. And again, I'm open to. I think you essentially. I think we're both. You started off being open to more things. I will add to your point. You cannot play competitive games in the fall. I mean, I guess they could change it if they really wanted to get like funky with how they could do it. But like Utah, remember when was it this year? I think Utah and Delaware had to play that game like indoors or whatever, because of the weather. They actually had to get a waiver because January 30th was before the actual window of time that there is to play competitive games. So, I mean, it'd be interesting. I'm not like, I think your idea is kind of interesting. Of like, if teams wanted to, I mean, it would need to be something that was changed. I think it's sort of an interesting idea. I'm not saying, I'm for or against it, but I do think it's kind of, it kind of reminds me a little of like, we've seen some of these suggestions of like in college football, like playing bowl games at like the start of the season as opposed to the end, or like do something with spring games. You mentioned, basketball kind of has the multi-team tournaments and things like that earlier in the year before conference play. I think that's interesting. That's interesting. Soccer actually did this a little bit. They kind of tinkered with like a fall and spring season. I don't know if it was only one, I think, kind of like towards the tournament, but they did like implement like a spring season as well. So I think it's an interesting suggestion. I feel like teams wouldn't be just, I don't know. That's interesting.
It's just like two, maybe, or even if it's just one, but that just opens up weekend, like open up slots. You can then maybe we will wait till February or Valentine's Day to start the season because we had two games that in the fall, and then you can do what they do with the football, like have the game and before the football game, like there's a lot of things you could do to like help growth, and it's like also alleviate this pressure of like there's, as you said, there's a finite number of weekends, and then like in the spring when the weather's really nice, and like if
I'm thinking of this. So my guess would be that adding another event on the calendar in the fall, even if it's just like 2 weeks, is probably too much. It's probably just too much of a strain on like logistic wise. But I'm thinking, here's my thing. I think coaches, as much as coaches talk about, I think Amplo did. I think he talked about this, and he was kind of pointing right of like, some of this is on us. Like, we talk about how it needs to be played, and then we're like, if it comes to like, and then all of us signed up to like schedule games earlier in the season anyway. Like, we can all talk about it, but if it, like look, this all started 10, 11, 12 years ago when I think Inside Lacrosse did an article on this, mention it first. When we started getting the teams like Richmond and like more like High Point and some of those teams in like the Carolinas and those areas, Jacksonville, who could play games in the first weekend of February, the second weekend of February because the weather was nicer. They started that, and then everyone else rushed to join them because it meant not playing midweek games. But it was like, you guys aren't in Florida. Like, you're in the Northeast. And like, so, but I think it's an interesting conversation. What's better? Is it a better product to play 2 games at the end of September or in early October? Yes, your team is not really identified yet. And it's more of like, it's kind of preseason-ish, definitely in some ways. But you have the better weather for sure. Or is it better to play games in the first weekend of February when it's cold as, and there's nobody in the seats? And is that any less preseason-y? Like, if we're talking about, because like the word, I think I would know, the coach would have said, because it's like, we don't even know our team yet. And you're having us play competitive games. Like, fair, but also I've seen a lot of February. I've watched a lot of first and second weekend of February lacrosse. That is a hell of a lot different to what we see at the end of the year anyway. I mean, in sometimes I've seen that. That is 2 different sports, honestly. So like, I think that's an interesting.
Allow them to do so if you want, like, and you can find a game like oh, you know what? End of October, still pretty nice, even in Massachusetts, Jersey, Maryland. Like, if we want to have one game there, or like a weekend, like where 2 games over a weekend with 4 teams or something like that, like that just like frees up. I really do think, because like I just want to
interesting idea. I didn't expect you to go there, but I'm actually like, now that the wheels are turning in my brain, I'm actually kind of intrigued by it.
I was just because like lacrosse is a victim of like the calendar, because like I know they like, oh, you want to be in front of the fans when it's nice and warm, but there's 3 weekends in April before the kids are out, like by early May. Like,
yeah,
a lot of kids are like done classes, just paper finals, like or maybe just hanging out for a couple, and then it's just like the May portion, that's when the tournament is. So it's like that regular season where you're like, oh, you're going to have the the teams play their best. Like, there's not that many of them, and it's just like you want to have some kind of really good game or something like that, or like something that's lost in the season, like midweek, or like I said, allowing them to have, like, if you want to, like, open up the window to be like, if you want to do something starting on October 15th, through December 15th, or November 15th, like that window, if you want to have something. And it's still pretty nice in Jersey in November. It's like, at least better than it is in February. This is bad shit.
No, I mean, it's you're not wrong. Like, February, I mean, like October, yeah. I mean, you could, it's pretty nice. Well, and I think that's a good point of like midweek is the potential solution to this problem. Nobody wants to do that though. And so like nobody really, it seems, wants to actually address the issues. We all like to complain about it. But
we haven't done anything and we ran out of ideas.
we run out of ideas how to fix it. And I get it, it's hard. Again, it's a logistical strain on that. To me is the obvious one. A problem is like just with the incredible logistical strain that football is, adding another event. I feel like you would have to do it on week. Let's see, this is the point.
That one you could do on a weekday, because there's no game on a weekend to like have a short week on. So you could have it on a Tuesday, whereas like less of a strain on the facilities on a weekend thing.
Or the other option is you do it when football is on the road.
Oh, absolutely.
And that, now granted, the problem with that, of course, is that you're asking people who had their weekend freed up. Now you're asking them to work. So it goes. Again, all these are difficult. All these are not easy conversations for sure. But hey, I think that, listen, it's an interesting suggestion. I hadn't thought about it.
This is our Schwarzenegger meme with like CSE. they they like sponsored it, took it, and like, but at least they would have events like on a, in the fall, like, the capitalism always wins, Jake. When we, we're just kind of figure it out. But all right, yeah, this is outside the box thing, but it was just like, yeah, like midweek is the solution if you want to have these great.
I thought you were gonna do the Tenet meme, where it's like we play games in October and it counts the same as games in May. It's a temporal pincer movement.
Exactly. That line, yeah.
Oh man. All right. Let's say, if you have any questions, lacrosse related.
No, it was like I was actually excited for third one there.
Okay, yeah, we can do that one. I was gonna break it up. Yeah, we can do that one. All right. This also comes from our pal Mark at Fieldy Stick. So he asked, let's do the third one and then we'll monster on. During the last show, Jake highlighted how few quote non-power programs play outside the ACC, Big Ten, Ivy League, etc. have even made the quarterfinals in the last decade, not counting any ACC, Big Ten, Ivy League schools or these quote established programs, Denver, Georgetown, and Loyola. This is the full list for the last 10 years, so since the 2017 season. In 2017, you had Albany as an 8 seed and Towson as an unseeded team make the final. Towson unseeded made the Final Four. Albany was an 8 seed and made the quarterfinals. In 2018, Albany was the 2 seed. They would go on to make the Final Four. And then in 2022, Delaware made it unseeded. 2023, Richmond made it unseeded. And 2023, Army made it unseeded. In 2025, Richmond made it unseeded. So there's the 6 teams outside of the ACC, Big Ten, Ivy League, and then also Denver, Georgetown, and Loyola to make the quarterfinals in the past 10 years. 6 appearances by 5 unique schools. Albany did it twice. Army, Delaware, Richmond, and Towson. Question is, thinking ahead to the next 10 seasons, so 2027 through 2036, which programs outside the 3 power leagues and those 3 and that trio do you see cracking the quarterfinals at least once? 5 is our recent baseline for the last decade, and that was a decade that seemed relatively dry on this front. Does that number of one about every other, it's basically one every other year, does that trend up or down moving forward?
I would say maybe stagnant or stay the same, just unless certain things change. I think there do kind of see a revolving door of the same teams in the quarterfinals. There's just like shout out to Wikipedia with that cool grid where you can like change in terms of like quarterfinals, semifinals, and then like during the years, like where those teams finish. But like there's only 15 teams that have made double digits or more for quarterfinals. And really, there's like 10 with 20 and more. So there's like not the grand landscape is not just making the quarterfinals is pretty difficult, and to do so consistently is really difficult. And the team that I was actually thinking was going to be that team is Albany. And the reason is because I'm thinking of Albany's other runs to the quarterfinals. It kind of felt like it was like kind of building this campaign, and then the big run of theirs, kind of like self-sustaining. But, the first quarterfinal appearance was 2007. They made the tournament 2003, 4, 5. Didn't make it 2006. Made it back in 2007, kind of with that core team, a nice run. Makes it to the quarterfinals. Have a bit of a wilderness stretch from 2008 to 2012 where they didn't make the tournament. But then again, 2013, 14, 15, 16, and then the 17, 18 is when their run. They make the quarterfinals again in 2014. So again, that campaign thing, they haven't made the tournament for multiple years, make it in 2013, come back, make the quarterfinals in 2014, have their run. 2016 is the year they made the tournament without making the quarterfinals. But from 2014 through 2018, they made every single quarterfinal. Now, where's Albany in now? Hey, as you and I always say, you can't make the dance. I'm butchering this, but you can't win homecoming if you don't even get invited to the dance. You know what I mean? Like homecoming, like these not making the tournament, which they hadn't done from 2018 to essentially 2024. There was no chance for quarterfinals, but there feels like kind of maybe that building that campaign thing. Maybe like Mars got like that second win, 2024 through this season. They made the NCAA tournament. Haven't really made noise, threatened, or even were like a little frisky, but making the tournament kind of builds that campaign. As Petro always said, each year you don't make it, it's harder to make it the year after, but each year you do make it, it makes it easier because you have something like carrying on, because players who didn't graduate can share with the freshmen that are coming in. So I think Albany, a proven program, proven coach, makes quarterfinals. One of the few made a Final Four that's outside of the big programs or big conferences, and just consistently making the tournament again. Like, I kind of feel like if there's somebody that I could kind of see outside of the usual suspects making a quarterfinal or two, is Albany. Kind of feel like if they kind of own their corner in terms of their conference and just keep getting shots, eventually they kind of break through, kind of like what Richmond did. The similar thing, campaign, making tournaments, occasionally missing it, making tournaments over and over again, falling short, finally then get that year where they make quarter. So feel like Albany, if I'm gonna gun to my head type of thing, is them. Like I was always kind of like BU, kind of feel like Patriot League kind of feels like it's there for there's for the taking, but there's for them to be competitive. They consistently give a great game, if not beat Army, which has kind of been like the bully of the block post Loyola. It's just, but they never like really sings for the Terriers in the way that it should for pretty consistently good that they've been in Patriot League. But get in my head, Albany, it would be my team.
So let's do it this way. You think Albany will do it in the next 10 years? Okay. Do you think Towson will do it?
Towson's another one. Kind of campaign thing. It's similar to Albany, team that kind of made back, got their mojo back a little bit.
I think they're a good example, though, of this year was the year. I think they really should have, losing to Stony Brook in the CAA championship, they really needed to make the tournament this year. So I think they would have had a shot to get there this year. Now they don't. You lose Weishauer, or you lose some of those guys. It's probably not going to be. This was the year they were building for the past 3 seasons. I'm not saying they can't. I mean, the way the league is set up for them now, they're going to have a good shot pretty much every year. But I think this was a shot. All right. Do you think that Delaware does it?
That was when I was thinking, and it just feels losing the sauce. Something happened. Like actually, DeLuca was one I thought maybe Tillman may go for, but it's a little bit like
that's interesting.
Like kind of come back to the big conferences. Maybe did your time in Delaware?
Wow. I had totally missed. I don't know if I had mentioned. I don't know if I remembered his name. I don't. Because I went through and I did the list of all these guys, and maybe I put him on the list if it wouldn't happen and he wouldn't leave, but that is actually pretty interesting. That is actually an interesting suggestion. I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying it's gonna not saying it's gonna happen, but actually, if you have, that's an interesting. There's a Cornell connection there too.
The respect level obviously is gonna respect coming to like DeLuca, like
interesting.
That coach thing that we always talk about, like this kind of thing. Again, I think the closer you get to the start of school, like how much difficult it is to.
Yeah, like I don't think. Right? I think 100%.
At the end of last year, could you have maybe talked to Ben and just been like, "Hey, when you come back to one of the big 3 conferences."
That's fascinating. I could see that. I don't think it would happen. I know that he's very. Obviously, Delaware gave him a second shot, and he obviously repaid them with some incredible seasons. Yeah. Been there a while now. Yeah, it's been there, I think, almost 10 years. New conference, too, which I think does make it a bit tougher. Maybe just it feels like with how Richmond is sort of set up there. Interesting ideas. Wow. So you got some. So you're throwing some just, throwing some ideas out there, and I'm just
I'm just having dimes out here, Jake. You know, I just make it rain. You know, you haven't been
just
unpopular long.
you're normally so yeah. It's like now it's like we haven't practiced in a while. You're pulling up from like 30 feet. It's like whoa. See that coming.
What does Vince Vaughn say? Where did crash? Jake, I was all state 2 years in a row. I can make it rain out here. Yeah, so I agree with you. Like with Delaware,
I'm
it
I'm
has
gonna
the
say
ingredients,
no.
but they
I'm
feel
gonna say
more attenuated than Towson
yeah.
Albany.
I feel like the window's kind of. I'm not saying they can't get it back again to camp, but I mean, Albany and Towson definitely had their fall offs too, and they came back to your point. And DeLuca, I regard him very well. I just think it's a little more. This gets to the point of like, do you think Richmond's going to do it?
You know what? I thought
Because I think that's 100. I think 100% are going to do it. I'm
yeah,
not
for
sure.
some reason I just kind of mentally put them in the Denver G-Town Loyola group.
Oh, okay.
But no, there wasn't explicitly in Mark's question. But yeah, that's another one
I think
where
they will. Even if Chamati leaves, I think Richards there with the investment they're putting in with lacrosse. I'm not saying they would have the same success that Chamati did over this run. I still think they would do it though. I think that I just think they're so set up that I'll be honest. I think if Chamati stays, I think they could like bump Denver out of this like group.
oh yeah, replace them.
Like if he, I think they get even if he doesn't, I still think they could be like what Albany or Towson is, where they're just like the kind of hegemon of that league. So all right, so we agree on Richmond, we agree on Albany, we agree on Towson. Army, do you think Army will do it?
Yeah,
I think so.
yeah,
It might be one. It might be one. I mean, how old's Alberisi?
that's the thing that I'm thinking of the Dan Campbell quote. Like like it feels like having. Again, but that goes back to my other point, like consistently making the tournament. It's the easiest way to make the quarterfinals because you can't make that without making the tournament. And now that's what Albany does, Army does, and it always wins. I do. I would. You know what? You mentioning them again, like when I look at Mark's question, I almost put Army in the Loyola position.
Okay.
But yeah,
I think
they
Army
have a
will.
better chance than one team. I just think that maybe an outside and maybe just too hot of a take. But Utah, like I just feel like
I agree. They were one I had. I don't think they have as good. I would take Army over Utah, but I do think Utah would. I think Utah will do it.
if we're doing the tiers or the iceberg, you guys, Brian always talk about like they're below Army, but like it feels with resources being kind of by themselves with just a couple other teams all the way in the West, like just putting it together one year, just having, where they're not the playing game or like, playing the second or third seed. Like if they could just get in there and we're like maybe play a 5 seed or a 7 seed, like that. They're like a Richmond year, like do really well, get a couple big time off out of conference wins, host a whole game. Like that's why like I agree with you. I believe in Richmond, like they do all this now. They're hosts, not consistent, but they've reached that level of hosting a game and just like that familiarity and just continuing to building that campaign type stuff. Like I just feel eventually Richmond going to make a quarter, if not like a Final Four. Just Final Four is where I kind of see their ceiling, maybe higher with Chamati. And I hear you. And if maybe he leaves what he's built and that foundation and being able to be top bed,
it's still on the table for them to be. It's set up. Chamati raises the ceiling to like. I think if he stays there for long enough, they could be Denver Loyola. Now, granted, Denver and Loyola peaked with a championship. I'm not sure they could get that far just because it's to what we're getting to. Things are tilting so much towards these top conferences now. Like say, I'll put this. So Mark mentioned from 2017 to 2026, it was 6 appearances by 5 unique schools. How many appearances do you have? How many schools do you think made it from 2007 to 2016 outside of that group? So we're not counting Georgetown, we're not counting Denver, we're not counting Loyola, and we're not counting ACC, Big Ten, Ivy League schools. So I'm not counting. I'm not even counting Ohio State when they were like in the ECAC, Great Western. I'm even taking them out of it. I'm just counting current mid-major schools, basically. How many teams do you think made it from 2007 to 2016?
Delaware.
Yes.
So, Navy?
Yes. Navy did it twice.
Yep. Maybe it was outside that the window. But UMass? They won, maybe?
You missed it by a year, 2006.
That's it.
Or how about this? One of them is a team that beat UMass in the quarterfinals and in the first round. Remember, UMass was undefeated in 2012. Mm-hmm. They lost in the first round. One of the teams, the team they lost to, qualifies in this. I don't know if that makes it easier.
I think maybe another CAA or Towson.
Towson did it. Yes.
I feel like it's on the tip of my tongue. That's St. Joe's. They lost to Penn that year. This is horrible radio.
It's fine. How many teams do you think? How many schools? Just give me a number. How many schools?
4 schools. 3?
10.
10? Oh, okay.
10 schools, 13 different appearances. Towson, Navy did it twice. Albany did it 3 times.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Just talk about Albany.
And then get ready for some of these other teams that did it. Drexel.
Oh, yeah.
Bryant. Colgate. Colgate beat UMass in 2012 in that Peter Bam. That was Peter Bam, the Toraton year. Stony Brook. Army.
LaSalle, yeah.
UMBC. And Delaware. So in that 10-year pocket, we had 10 schools do it. 2 schools did it, multiple times. So we got 13 unique appearances from out of, Delaware, UMBC, Army, Stony Brook, Colgate, Bryant, Drexel, 3 for Albany. That's 10. Navy's 12. Towson is 13. So we went from 10 schools to 5 in this past 10-year period, and we went from 13 unique appearances, 13 kind of total, 5 unique schools, went from 10 unique schools to 5, and 13 total appearances to 6. My answer is I think Richmond will do it. I think Towson will do it. I think Army will do it. I'll say Navy, just because I think if they can get it right, they'll do it. That's 4. So Richmond, Towson, Army, Navy. Honestly, the Albany one, I'm kind of Marv's getting up there. I don't know. I think they could, but I would actually take them off. I'll throw in Utah. I'm gonna probably say 5.
Yeah,
I'm not sure it's gonna be. There are other teams who could potentially be used a good shout. But they got to make the tournament. I mean, they made it once. Like, you make it one time and you got to go on the road to play a Princeton team that made the Final Four. Like, that's, if you don't give yourself cracks at it. Look, that Richmond is the ultimate example. Richmond's had so many cracks at it. They made it once. I mean, Richmond's lost. Richmond could have made 3 quarterfinals, to be honest with you. They should have done it this year. They should have beat Penn in 2022.
Yeah.
So that should be 3, and you could argue they should have beat Cornell last year and made the Final Four. They had the lead in the 4th quarter. So, Richmond should have got it 3 times out of the ones they did. Albany's the most impressive run just because of how many they really cashed in a lot of opportunities. They did it 2007, they did it 2014, 2015, 2017, 2018. Like, they cashed in on a lot of chances, but still, to make the Final Four for them, it took the 5th bite at the apple, and it took having TD Ierlan, part of it too. Like, I mean, they had Albany had 2 generational players on. Albany's impressive because they did it in 2007 before they had the Thompsons or anything like that, so they had the proof of concept. But you still had 2014 Lyle Thompson and Miles Thompson. 2015, Lyle Thompson. 2017, TD and Connor Fields. And 2018, TD and Connor Fields. Like, those are, they had generational talents on. And 2018 at Tahoka, too, when he was, big name. So that's makes it tough. I just think it's going to get. It's not going to get any easier for these programs. The transfer portal and everything like that was an obvious blow that made their jobs and their lives a lot more difficult. We talk about the scheduling with the RPI and things like that. And as soon as we came out of the super team kind of type period, we were like, all right, now these teams can kind of come up for air. They get hit with the 5-for-5, which is just going to be another one, because a guy's like a Mikey Weishauer for Towson could play 4 years for Towson, then he's free to go wherever he wants. And he could play a fifth year at, he could have played a fifth year at Hopkins or Maryland or something like that if he, so choose. Not saying he would have, but like it's only accentuated the difficulties that they're dealing with. To where now it's, now before it was like guys might leave after their junior year, take a shot to move up. Maybe if they got injured or they had a redshirt year, they might go. Now every guy on your team has a free year to work with. So they might stay for 4 years, which I guess in some ways maybe that's good. You can see it from that perspective, that instead of leaving after like their freshman or year, maybe they'll. But nonetheless, like, it's if you still got a guy who's had a big freshman season and then Syracuse or someone comes calling. I mean, like, that's still gonna be tough for them to say no to. Granted, it's only a one-time transfer, but like, I think that the 5-for-5 thing definitely made it even tougher. As soon as we kind of got out of like, all right, the super teams are gone. Guess what? They're coming back.
Really
right there.
Been the same, or it's been kind of consistent, trying to be much more difficult since, honestly, like the early recruiting stuff.
Yes, that's a big one.
That's the inflection point, and you always talk about it. It's so true, because you could eat on the mistakes and the bad calls by the
that was Loyola. That was Loyola. Pat Spencer, who they got Pat. No one wanted Pat when he was a freshman. Loyola jumped, and by his senior year, Pat was like a 5-star. He was the number 5 player in the country. And now everybody gets recruited before their junior year.
It's crazy because, like, I mean, I think ostensibly it was like, to protect the students and the players in high school from making like altering decisions when they're like 12 and 13. Which again, I was like, this is America. If I'm a parent, I could get my kid locked into Princeton today. Like, I'm doing it. Like, I don't know what you're talking about.
It went both ways. It went both ways though, because you would also have kids who, by their, some kids would get dropped. It went, the reverse. I don't disagree. I think you're right. Like, was it the right decision? Probably. Also, did we think of some of these downstream effects as much? No.
Yeah, I think at time people were like, "Oh, this will give other teams a chance to get at these players, before they get picked." At the end of the day, like, now it's just like it forced like discipline on like the big programs of not like going out.
You can't waste spots. You can't waste spots
on something that's coming 5 years from now. Like, the kid
think of all these things happening in a 5-year. Maybe even less, because early recruiting ended 2017, was it?
Yeah, we were podding. I remember. Yeah, it's like
in a 3-year stretch, in under 5 years, basically. I'll say that all these things happen. Early recruiting stops, which, to your point, like, look at the time period, 2007 through 2016. I just mentioned all those teams. That's like the peak of early recruiting. So the early recruiting, yes, to your point, is a huge one. Guess what else? We mentioned this at the time. Not a lot of people mentioned this at the time, and I will admit fully, I was not a shot clock acolyte.
Yeah, we were agnostic. We were like,
I was an agnostic. I will come around and say I think it's been great as far as the entertainment value of the games. I'm a full supporter now. Guess what? We mentioned this at the time. Not a lot of people did. The shot clock 100% made it harder for these teams. How did Towson? We talked about the death grip, the chokehold. Can't do that anymore.
No.
Like, the shot clock 100% made it harder for teams to pull upsets in tournament games. Like you just cannot, win games 9-8 in the tournament. I mean, you can, but like your defense has to play unbelievably well. Whereas back then, your defense had to play really well, and your offense had to be efficient. You could also just chew up, 3-4 minutes a clock.
Dozens of minutes, yeah.
Like, you could go back and look at. I sometimes go back and look at like the shot count for like some of those games. It's like under 30, shots for both teams. There's like some games now, it's like combined shots are like the 70s, 80s, and the 90s.
People screaming, timer on, timer on.
And it's like that happened, and then COVID happened, which led to the transfer portal with all group transfer portal and COVID blowing up together. 3 things all happened in that stretch, which just all worked against it.
Oh yeah, and just outside that window, the kids are getting money now. So the bigger programs can pay their. Yeah.
There you go. And this is the thing of like all of these things can be good for. This often is the case. Things that are good for the sport overall and the health of the sport on the whole don't necessarily help the teams more towards the bottom.
Oh yeah.
It's always going to filter to the top first, unless you have college football is the, I guess, sort of like opposite of this, but that's because college football, they have boosters who can, give out tens of millions of dollars. You got like Cody Campbell at Texas Tech, who wants to be the president of college football, basically, can, start, injecting hundreds of millions of dollars into Texas Tech football, and they can become a, playoff team. Like, yeah, college lacrosse can't do that. I mean, you could, I guess, your money could go far in college lacrosse if you really wanted it to, but nobody's going to do that. Like, if Bloomberg or whatever, or Sergey Brin wanted to, in our dreams, just give a bunch of money to the lacrosse program, that money would go a long, long way. It probably would go a longer way than it would doing it for football, but they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that.
That is my pitch to Carl icon when I tell him about like Princeton needs a new stadium.
It's like what we mentioned with the the house settlement.
Mm-hmm.
We were like, if Hopkins wanted to, they could give all 20 million of that money.
Let's go, Daniel. I've seen you at the games. I know you care. Let's put some money behind those.
Is Hopkins going to give all 20 million of that to the? No. Are they giving some of it? Yes. But if they wanted to, they could give all 20 million to lacrosse right now, and they would completely change the sport. If Hopkins announced tomorrow, like, yeah, we're going to give all 20 million, their recruiting class in a month, they'd have like 6 of the top 10 players or something. Like, it would change dramatically, but of course, it's not going to do that. So, back to the original point, yeah, all of these things have just hurt these schools.
The Manchester City way. Let's just do it.
I'm just saying it out.
That's because Daniel's office. Like, we can win a national championship next year, President Daniel, if you have the courage.
Hopkins can bring back the 80s if Ron Daniels has the courage.
Let's make this school great again. We're not even good for the hospital. That's good. We're like second.
Oh man,
how'd you get in here? Like,
don't ask that.
Action. I'm like, Maria, you pay. I tell you what you pay. You just read the check.
Oh man. All right, Steve. I got one for you. We've talked a lot about the past couple of years about the kind of like defense kind of rising again, coming back after talking about the shot clock period. I kind of looked up some numbers compared to at the start of the shot clock and to now. And the decline in offensive efficiency is not significant. I mean, it is sort of there. If you look at 2019, 2022, and 2023, the basically league average offensive efficiency in college lacrosse. So basically, I just took like whichever team was like split, right down the middle, the median, team right in the middle. Their offensive efficiency was about 30.1, 30.2%. If you look at the last couple years, the league average offensive efficiency, it hasn't been above 30% since 2023. It was 29.3 in 2024, 29.6 in 2025, and 29.4 this year. So it's dropped about 1% over the last couple years. Not a big change, but not totally insignificant. The best offenses have not changed too much. If you look like the median top 10 team, so basically those teams like right at 5 and 6, it actually has kind of risen a little bit up to this year was 38.1%, or this year was 37.9, last year was 38.1, some of the highest marks since the shot clock. Defensive efficiency is really on the rise, though. The median top 10 defense this year had a defensive efficiency of 22.1%. In 2019, it was 25.4. That was obviously the first year of the shot clock. Then in 22, it was 24.2. 23 was 24.5. 24 dropped to 23.8. 25, it dropped to 23.0, and now it's dropped to 22.1. In the past 3 years, it's dropped about 2.5%. And if you just look at the league average defense, in 2023, sort of when offense to some degree peaked, it's kind of stayed about the same. So what we have here is that the best offenses are sort of are still really, really good. The middle of the road, like the average offense in college lacrosse, is getting a bit worse. But the best defenses are really starting to. The best defenses the past sort of 2 seasons are better than they've ever been in the shot clock era. So I'll ask you, what do you think, 1, is driving this? And 2, how do you think offenses turn it back around if they do? How does the balance swing back towards offense, or do we kind of continue on this path?
I actually think it probably see the trend continue.
Okay.
Because I think just the more sophisticated defense have been, the harder it is to get into the paint. Whether it be pass or a dodge or like, it's just really hard because you got really athletic guys, really great stick skills, and it's just like those passes that we were seeing before, just like they're just tougher and tougher to make it.
Stick skills is a great point. The number of like deflections and passes being picked off we're seeing
snap around the ear and intercepted, like it's amazing.
Yeah, it's so much more. It's so much higher in the past couple of years.
It feels like was like I'm sure like, oh, get your stick in there and stuff like that. But it really feels like, kind of with defensive line, we started really, really doing it, like putting the hands in there, just like, oh, I can't get the sack, but I can get the knockdown. All of that technology, just being able to get filmed. Like, I just think like the defense are just going to get better. Kind of like with basketball, like the rules like are progressively making it harder on defense to get that like foothold, to kind of change, the offensive nature of what basketball said. And I think there hasn't been as many like of those rules in place for lacrosse. So like, eventually, like kind of like water seeping in. If there's a big cracker that get in, like defense, like after a little while, they'd be able to get used to the amount of pace and the possessions per game. And like I said, and just getting better, like defensively and especially in the interior. Like, just felt like maybe I wouldn't have guessed it in 2020, 1 or 22, but like, it really does feel noticeable. Again, the numbers don't show that effect in offense efficiency, but like, it does feel like defenses are getting better. And I think just the nature of the shot clock, because you can fall off a little bit, zone-ish type thing, and then there's this like 15, 20, 25, 15 seconds on the shot clock. Like, it really is like, to find that guy who's going to get that space and to be able to get, like, you usually just see a ton of bad shots. And it's just because, like, it's like kind of in basketball. It's like, 5 seconds on the shot clock, just throw it to your best guy. It takes maybe a second or two to get there. So, he doesn't get it till there's 3 seconds. Like, maybe he makes 1 or 2 moves. And then, like, he's got to, like, chuck it, to be the, we see that more, like, amount of times that we see, like, teams throw it into the corner instead of like having a bad shot that gets saved and then like a counter on it. Like, I don't know, we would thought of that like 2019, 2021, 2020. Like, I think we knew, oh, that's a good strategy. Oh, this possession is lost. Just throw it in there, get the defense set up. But it's just like, she's kind of like 2 or 3 times a game for some. And like, I remember, again, like, it's a lot, but like, even certain games with like really good offenses, like, it just like couldn't get a shot, or like, by the time your ex tried to make a move, it's only like 12 seconds left. And it just, yeah, or like you didn't have a shot, and then you get 7, and then it's like, oh, it's enough time to make a move, or just throw it. Like, I think like the clock itself, it works against the offenses. I think the goal is to get more possessions, but I think it's also resulting in like wasted possessions. Like, I guess is one way. Maybe like you can talk to Zach, see if you can make a make a algorithm on that. But like, it does feel like bad possession shooting percentage seems to be getting, not progressively worse as well, like that. So I don't see it changing. Maybe there's some rule, like, I don't know if you ever have a defensive.
I mean, I feel
3
like
seconds in the paint.
I feel like if anything, that's interesting. Defensive 3. That's like a 3 seconds. I don't know if that would really like. That's actually would be like a radical change. Now that I'm thinking about it. Honestly, I don't for lacrosse. I think that'd be too. I honestly feel like that would be too. That'd go too far. I mean, I think if you had to like, if guys had to like, if you made like a defensive 3 seconds, and you left guys like Jake Taylor alone for 3 seconds, I just feel like it would, I feel like goals would shoot up exponentially.
Oh yeah, no, like
I think it'd be.
But
No.
point of referencing that as like some type of rule that.
No, yeah, I know what you're saying. I was just working through it. Now I'm like, I think that would actually be like too far in the other direction.
Some like you're not checking a guy. You can't be in that for like,
honestly, the one thing to me that's been surprising is the man up offense feels like it's gotten worse.
Oh yeah.
And it feels like the fact that I remember a couple years ago we were talking about this when we started seeing like more penalties being called. It felt like it could be a potential, an opportunity, and it actually really it hasn't been. And again, I just think it's defenses are not practicing it more. Man down defense assumed, because there's more opportunities for it, and they're doing a good job. The other thing is like the only significant rule change I could see is making the length to shot clock reset even less, which I think would just help defenses more.
Oh yeah.
If instead of going to 60, you went to 30. I mean, that'd be more I think it'd lead to more possessions in the game, probably on balance, just because you're speeding the game up with. But I don't think it would. Yeah, I mean, if anything, I think it'd help defenses even further. So, I don't believe they'll ever add a 2-point arc, but even if you did, that wouldn't change. That would just artificially inflate goal scoring. It wouldn't. It wouldn't change the actual like nature of it. So, I think. The answer is one. I think defenders are just getting better and better. They're better at the athleticism is just increasing more and more. They're getting better at learning how to use their stick. To your point, the sophistication of defenses. I think we hit like a nexus point of one, an unbelievable crop of offensively talented players. That stretch where we just had, Jared Bernhardt, Michael Sowers, and Chris Gray, and Grant Ament, and then Pat Cav, and Brendan O'Neill, and Connor Schellenberger, and Pat Spencer, and yada 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 yada. It's just a incredible 5-6 year stretch of unbelievably talented offensive players, and we have the shot clock. And you put those things together, an entirely new way for defenses to have to play, with an unbelievable crop of offensively talented players, and we just hit like it's the synergy point at which it was huge for offenses. And now we're coming back down off of that. We're now like the offensive talent of the game is very good, but it's not what it was a couple years ago. The defensive talent, if anything, feels like it's getting better. And defenses are now accustomed to, the shot clock and things like that. I think offenses have just got to find what's the next innovation, what's the next layer of how they play. We've seen different things with like more positionless lacrosse. Finding players who can play anywhere on the field. The game has seemingly changed back. For a while there in that kind of period I mentioned, the game was being played much more behind the net. Part of that was because of the pre-shot clock era. where you could kind of hang the defense up used to be a huge advantage. Nowadays, it's much less than it used to be. Partly the shot clock is a factor in that, just because you can't indefinitely hold the ball behind the net. And so now it feels like we're starting to see. You still need a behind the net presence for sure. I mean, it's still a massive factor, but it does feel like the game is being played more above the net, kind of the way it was back in the 2000s. So I just think offense has got to figure out what's the next change, what's the next thing that they can, I mean, look, offenses are still doing well. So again, as we talk about, these are not like significant changes, but great defenses are winning in a way that previously it didn't feel. Previously, it felt like great offense would beat great defense. The past couple of years, it feels like great defense is beating offense, and that kind of this elite, great defense is winning. I think Princeton's a good example of this. I think could a team like Princeton with the offense they had have maybe shot their way to a championship in 2019 or 2022, 23, something like this. Maybe they could have. They needed to get better on defense to win this year. Mm-hmm. Their defense had to improve, along those lines. Maybe even face-off is a factor too. The new rules for face-offs have kind of leveled out the playing field a little bit. We don't have those dominant face-off guys to as degrees we used to see. Teams also have better face-off guys now. The bottom. There's still a disparity. I mean, the biggest in lacrosse is like the best face-off guy in the country to the worst face-off guy is a bigger disparity than the best offense to the best defense. But I don't think it is what it was once they've kind of changed these rules. So I think to your point, I think it will probably. I don't know if it'll continue to grow that gap, but I don't think it's going to flip back anytime soon. And definitely not to the degree it did like 4 or 5 years ago. The only thing I guess I could see is with the 5-for-5, if we start getting lots of teams that have fifth-year senior guys on offense, maybe. Like that kind of experience. I mean, on the other hand, you'll still have it on defense too. So it kind of works both ways. But some of those offenses we saw at Notre Dame a couple years ago, Virginia, Maryland, that extra year of experience on offense is pretty big. So that's the only thing that I might, be able to see. Speaking of 5-for-5, because we kind of been, skirting talking around that. We had a question about that from. Let me see if I can find it. It was from Robert M. Brown at RM Brown 18. What do you think is going to happen with the high school class of 2022 seeking to play a fifth year? What do you think should happen? We're waiting for a ruling next week by the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals in the Colorado case. Meantime, cases are being filed in state courts.
There is a part of me can understand like an equitable argument, like, hey, I just graduated. They make this rule change 3 weeks ago. Why can't they extend it and have a grace period or grandfathered in the class of 2022? That would probably result in a lot less litigation because person who had graduated in 2 seasons prior, like they've already changed their life or going to like maybe some people stop and make an argument. Well, I graduated 2 years ago. Why can't I get
Yeah.
And then that's the argument. But like I think if they did the grandfathering in, the people who just graduated had the closest in time to like still being with the team. So I would have probably. I'm sure somebody did raise their hand, and be like, "Hey, we should grandfather these, and probably it's going to result in less issues going forward." And it doesn't guarantee that all of them are going to take it, but at least this way, we don't. As long as if we did it this way, and we didn't have the lawsuit like that, it's not in the headlines, and just may end up being not as many people doing it, even if they were able to do it. But I think because of that, then it got kind of in the news and maybe more people thinking about it. Also, more like once you start doing the lawsuits and the successful, attorneys are going to start jumping in, like people. So I think it could have resolved a lot, helped to avoid a lot of potential obstacles they're facing right now.
I got the easy way to me. They should have avoided this. I've been saying this since it was announced.
Get a job.
Well, yes, but from the NCAA's point of view, it should have applied to the incoming freshmen only.
Yeah.
It shouldn't have applied to anybody. Like once the would they still have had a lawsuit? Probably, and the NCAA's success in lawsuits, as we've seen, is they're it'd be like us trying to hit a Major League Baseball.
It feels like they're trying to shoot the moon, and Rummy were right or Jin were like, you do so bad that you actually win. Like it just like
I mean, you could argue, I guess, considering their goal for the entire decade at this point has been
they're like screaming for Congress to help them.
yes,
Like,
exactly, yes, exactly. And I guess you could argue like if you're lose every lawsuit, maybe Congress will pay attention and come save you. Which Congress is. There's been more movement in Congress on something to, I don't want to say fix this, but address this in some way in the past couple weeks than there has been in the past 5 years. However, I mean, the Senate is in recess, and there's elections in 3 months, and I'm not saying that'll change it. There's a bipartisan effort, in terms of addressing it, but nonetheless, I'm like, we've got the Senate's in recess, and stuff moves slow as it is, and then you're gonna have elections, and you're gonna have all the other machinations that usually happen there, and it's like, the goal was clearly to have this done, I think, before the Senate went on recess, and it didn't happen. So it's not going to happen for this year. If anything, it'll have to go into effect for next season, if that. But I think it should have just applied to the incoming freshmen, because as you said, it opened the door up for guys to make their argument. Here's what should happen. I'm not sticking up for the NCAA, but I think the NCAA should be given some measure of ability to enforce its own laws. And to me, it's like they made this rule. Like they didn't make the rule during the season. They made the rule after the season ended. Like if they had done it in March, sure, I'd see the argument. They did it in the summer. To me, it's like I understand. I do understand the way the position the NCAA has put themselves in, to where they've essentially set it up to where you can argue that playing this is my career. That this is my career, basically. I mean, they once the amateurism thing went out the window, which it was going to. It was a load of hooey. You can stretch that a long way, and there's lawsuits they can make suggesting they should be given a 5th year and different guys to try this. I understand the position the NCAA's put themselves in of their own making. Nonetheless, I think come on, man. I think there's a degree to which they should be able to enforce their own rules. And also, and this is where I think that I don't know if look, you're the legal expert, not me. I think if you got drafted or you have played a professional game, you're done. I think they're going to. I don't think the NCAA is going to win until the NCAA wins a lawsuit. I'll see it. I'll see it. I believe it. But to me, if I was, again, I'm not the legal expert. If I was drawing up what I feel like is the most equitable solution, if you have not played a professional game, if you haven't signed a professional contract, all right, I can see an argument for giving you another year based on the 5 for 5. I can see that. If you signed a professional contract, you sign a professional game, no. There's still, it's still not professional sports. Maybe they will eventually collectively bargain and, a union, and they'll do all that. But it's still not pro sports. And even the courts have generally been pretty, have kind of held firm on that. And so, to me, I think that some of these guys who kind of were on NFL practice squads and are now rolling back out, or in the case of the Syracuse guys or the Crosse, the most obvious one, all of those guys I'm pretty sure now have played professional games. I'm sorry. I just don't, the only one who was Finn Thompson, I think, who hadn't played it's if you signed a pro contract, you signed a pro contract. I don't think you should, now if there's some guy out there who hasn't, all right, I can see an argument then. In that case, he's technically not a professional. Okay, to me, what should happen. I mean, listen, if it were me, I would say, I think you guys had under the laws at that time, you got the full amount of games you should have gotten. This is a new set of rules. We're operating a new set of rules. I would say no. I don't think any of them should come back. And listen, my position has changed on this. I was in favor of giving the extra year when the COVID thing happened. I did think at the time. I still think that based on what we had at the time, that was an equitable, that was a fair, solution. If I could go back, and probably I'd be like, let's just maybe do none of this because like, I'm sorry, some of you guys, you got to get a job, man. Like, come on, like just go to work, pay some taxes, But I would say to me the most equitable, solution would be if you but if you signed a professional contract, you should know. I think that's still and granted, this gets into in lacrosse specifically, and I don't know how many guys this will apply to necessarily. They don't count the G League as professional. Will they count the PLL as professional compared to the G League? I don't know. Then you get into like European pro leagues.
That's a big one.
That's different. Like, what I will say is I can sort of see the NCAA's process of like, Europe is not North America. European pro leagues do operate differently. In some cases, like you have guys who go pro in Europe at like 16, which is like, that's just like, they don't have college in Europe. So like, you sign these guys sign European pro contracts like when they're teenagers. It's just kind of how it works over there. So I sort of see that. The G League thing, honestly, is pushing it for me a bit as well. But it's not the NBA. Like, the PLL is the highest level of professional lacrosse. It's pro lacrosse. So I don't know how they're dealing at that, but I do think there's some consistencies you can see across there. Look, at the end of the day, the NCAA's made this a mess. We'll see how it plays out. But I think the equitable solution to your point is like, all right, if you didn't go professional, I can see an argument for you getting a 5th year. But if you did, you signed a pro contract, you played pro games, no, that's it.
Yeah, I can see that. I think it's fair.
All right, let's try and get through these last couple that we got here. Let me see what I got. All right, pal. Mark Rafilsic had this. I was watching a replay again of the 2005 Virginia Johns Hopkins semifinal. While watching, it occurred to me it's probably the game from before my time following the sport that I most wish I had been in attendance for. Thinking back on games before your respective times following lacrosse closely, which individual game is the one you would personally pick to have witnessed in person?
I mean, can we just do games we missed?
Sure. Yeah, that works.
I mean, part of me would love to be at that 2007 title game.
That's a good one.
Because for me, that's just with the Duke stuff, and everyone's just like, they're gonna win. Just that moment for Hopkins was just delicious. I don't feel bad for what happened to Duke for sure, but just like kind of ruining their day was just and then doing it again in 2008 was great. I almost wish also the 2005 title game as well. I mean, I was at the Final Four game, but the title game just with like Duke making Hopkins wait, all that stuff. With the kind of like hard body, the demeanor like they kind of had under Presley. John Presley is a great coach, but definitely like
was it 05? Was
a tough guy? It felt like
was 05 or 07 to be careful what you wish for. It was 05, wasn't it?
Oh, probably 05. Yeah, absolutely.
05, and then 07 is 07's the one where Duke makes them wait in the locker room for like
grand entrance, like make the team.
Petro's on the sidelines.
The look at like Sarza for doing the stick check right into careful what you push for it. Like he was running it, man. It was.
Those are some good ones. I got a couple. Obviously, I wish for being for either Maryland championship. I would love to have been there one. The 24 Duke, the quarterfinal against Duke, might be my all-time favorite Maryland win. So that's a good one. I got 3 from before my time. The 2004 championship game, Syracuse Navy in Baltimore. That's a classic. I think Hoya Suxa, who had this the lineal cross commission college cross belt before we did. I think he was at that one. Just it's Navy being there. It was an incredible crowd atmosphere for Navy in Baltimore. That's a pretty special one. That I think I definitely would love to have seen that one. The other 2 are both Maryland ones in College Park. 95, Maryland beats Hopkins in the semifinal, 16-8 in College Park. That was, I think Hopkins was undefeated. And then, they were 13-0, lost in the semifinals. Probably Tony Seaman's best shot to win a championship at Hopkins, which is eventually kind of what, he lost the job. And then the other one would be the 97 semifinal where Maryland beat Syracuse 18-17 to get to the championship. Both cases in the championship, they promptly lost, and 97 was a laugher to Princeton. But those 2 semifinals in College Park, I think would have been super cool. Just think some other ones. The Hopkins Virginia one in 2012, that one was a classic.
Down in Charlesville?
Yeah, Klockner.
1 versus 2? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was a classic. Oh, I mean, the Maryland Virginia one a couple years ago at Klockner, was it 2023, I think, where Maryland won in
walk-off?
And and the Klockner, the mics were hot.
Oh my God.
that was incredible.
That's cinema.
That was a good one. I feel like I was thinking of another one that I just lost. Oh, Ryan was at this one, but the Notre Dame Albany quarterfinal is an all-timer. I know Ryan was at that one. That was a pretty classic one. All right, Safe, do you have a question?
I did have like a pop culture fun question.
I think I had a lacrosse question like jumping off of this, so we'll do this one.
Okay, definitely. So, everyone who's followed the pod knows we always like going through our tiers, our lists, our best actors. So we always do a lot of content on the young boys, the ones that we're thinking are up and comers. There's going to be at the next belt. Shout out Bill Simmons, for that nomenclature. I feel like we don't take enough time to shout out the older or oldish actors, and so I thought of a funny way to frame this is in any given Sunday, we have the all-time scene with LT's in there, Jamie Foxx comes in there, doesn't see it was after their fight. LT's in there just kind of in the corner, and Jamie just kind of gets startled and sees him, and LT's almost like a snarl, kind of just tells him how it is you should have football be the main thing that you're known about as a man, and that's something I can use you up. So I was thinking in my head, it was talking enough about the young boys, the Timmy, Bobby P, Austin Butler, Big Jake Elordi.
I think we gotta take Pattinson out of that, to be honest.
Really? I know he says he's Gen Z, as a joke. So, but,
I think Pattinson, if anything, should be like the model for those guys.
I was gonna say there was no LT without the words flying high.
He should be like their inspiration.
He's LL Cool J. He's in the prime of his career.
The way that he pivoted off of Twilight and used that to just start doing whatever the hell he wanted, and just started taking Good Time and The Lighthouse, and just start doing all sorts of weird, interesting roles. And then of course he linked up with Nolan and he did Tenet, and that kind of got him back in the the big blockbuster, and he did obviously Batman, and now it's kind of his year right now. But I think he should kind of be the the inspiration sort of for these. I think the young group is, shout Timmy, obviously. Austin Butler's a good one. Lordy's a good one. Tom Holland. These are all like what, under 30? I mean, Holland's I think just turned 30. So I think these are all 30 and under. Chalamet's also what? Is he 30 now? I think
he's right around his, yeah.
He's 20. I think he's 28 because he was like 21 when he got nominated for the first time. So yeah, this group. I think this is a good. Yeah, this is a good group.
That's so they're on the cusp, but like, so we could put Bobby P in here for our LT, but it's like, who would be the LT role? So you got these, the Jamie Foxx guys, like would be LT that kind of slightly oldish actor who had the sauce, lost it, maybe even got it back. Who would sit the young boys and tell them how to avoid the pitfalls of fame in Hollywood. So we had a few. Come on, like I don't want to steal your thunder on the one that you had. For me, I easily just thought of Colin as a joke, a question I made for myself. So I was able to find the answer quickly. But I was like, Colin Farrell just absolutely the LT role, like Colin, in the blog days, before social media, just like my parents told me, Colin was in the tabloids.
He had the juice, man. He had the juice.
He was running on the street level. The movies kind of suffered a bit, but definitely think like he kind of tell it's kind of like that Neymar type of the mystique were kind of got lost in the fast lane a little bit. Maybe didn't reach his potential. I think Colin kind of like turned it around and stuff like that. The other one was Shia, just because he absolutely did lose his mind for a bit, it feels like. I do love the one him and Bernthal, the podcast. Like Shia talks about like this. All these content, you're like, damn. Those are a couple. Bobby P is like actually the best case. LT who is in like a worn down.
He's inspirational.
Absolutely. So only 5 years into the NFL career, so flying at the quarterback, being the team sack. So in a good way, but like, hey, don't want to get yourself typecast. This is what you're gonna have to do. Like, being able to say no to the role. I guess obviously Leo is probably the other like best model.
He's inspired. Yeah,
he's for Bobby. I feel like right, Robert Preston. Like you could probably look at Leo like Titanic and Twilight kind of had the similar thing.
Yeah, because Leo
didn't go out of his way to ugly himself up. There's some like wild.
No, Leo never Leo kind of. I mean, it was just.
The beach goes hard. The beach goes hard. I will always ride for the beach.
The beach does feel like the point where he was like, yeah, I'm just going to stick in my lane. Like, I'm just going to... Spielberg, you're up. Marty, you're up. And he just started working with, all the big directors that he... I mean, he still had some of the 2000s. Like, was it Body of Lies? Well, Body of Lies was Ridley, wasn't it? So it didn't go as well. Did you listen to the Italian Job rewatchables?
I was talking about that because you wanted to alley your choice. But I did watch it and listen to it. I'm really
Bill going like, instead of Wahlberg, what if we got Leo? And CR was just like, well, yeah, man, it'd be a better movie.
It's like me saying, instead of Bryce Harper, what if we had Barry Bonds? Yeah,
he thinks it'd be great. But it's like I got Bill's point, like, Leo just sort of like, at that point, he was just, if it wasn't like, a big name, I guess the other one was Blood Diamond. That was what they said. It was like, you get Blood Diamond or, because who directed Blood Diamond? Is that Zwick? Blood Diamond is Edward Zwick, who Edward Zwick rules, but is much more of like just a
I still gotta watch that, and you know how much I love Jennifer Connelly. That's definitely
you haven't seen Blood Diamond.
I always see the one scene. I don't know what's in my algorithm, but when he goes like, I went to
Rhodesia.
He's like, nobody calls Zimbabwe. Oh, do it or something. And I'm just like, why am I haven't watched this yet?
Oh man, Blood Diamond rocks. Hilarious acts. Jennifer Connelly's throwing 99.
Still
Arnold Vosloo's in it. Jimon Hunts. Oh, Blood Diamond.
Yeah. No,
the best thing about Blood Diamond is Leo. Is he clearly wanted that? He was clearly The Departed was supposed to be his Oscar like deal, and I'm pretty sure that was when like Leo, Damon, and Wahlberg like all wanted to go in like supporting actor. They didn't like none of them wanted to like go for like best actor. And the Academy was just like, fuck this. All right. And so Damon got nothing out of it. Wahlberg got the supporting actor nom and didn't win. And they just chose Leo's best actor for Blood Diamond. And we're just like, we're not dealing with your chicanery.
You're not going to game our system. This is the cause lacrosse schedule. You know? You can't just...
That's fine. All right. So the obvious one is Edward Norton. Who Edward Norton's first like 7 years or yeah, I mean this dude was like Brad Pitt. Like, I mean, he was on the Brad Pitt Leo trajectory. He does Primal Fear, his first role, gets an Oscar nomination. 2 years later, he gets another Oscar nomination. He had 2 Oscar nominations in his first 5 movies. It's just insane. Also does Rounders. Then he does Fight Club. Even after that, Red Dragon was a big hit. 25th Hour. Kind of more got acclaim later, but he's big in that. Again, first 6 years, he's got 2 Oscar nominations. He's got 3 or 4 huge movies. I mean, he's a guy. And then he does The Italian Job, which is basically Paramount. He needs to do a movie. Long story short, if you want to look it up, you can. There's like a good New York Observer article about it. He has to do a movie for Paramount. He kind of keeps pushing it off and pushing it off. He doesn't really want to do it, and at some point he tries to get Paramount to like produce a movie, and they're like, no. Paramount finances one of his movies, and he's like, see, I did a movie for you guys. And I'm like, no, you didn't. He asked the head of Paramount, be like, please don't put me in a bad movie. And she's like, I will never make you do a movie you don't want to do. This is his kind of version of events. Paramount's like, yeah, we never said that. So eventually, like he hires Marty Singer, who's like the big Hollywood lawyer for them, and he loses in the end. Basically, Paramount's like, you're gonna do this fucking movie for us, and he does The Italian Job, and that like knocks his career just off course completely. After that, his biggest movie for 5 years is Kingdom of Heaven, where you don't see his face.
Hard movie.
Great movie. Great role. He kills it. He's fantastic. But you don't see his face. Then he gets it back on track with Hulk. Because he gets to be in Hulk, the second Marvel movie. And then either he doesn't really want to do it, or Marvel's like, Jesus Christ, this guy's, we just don't want to, we're not trying to deal with this guy. One or the other, and he loses that, and he's basically for like 10 years he just bounced around doing nothing. I mean, he's got like no real roles. And I think they mentioned this in Italian Job Rewatchables, where like Sierra mentioned this. Eventually he just winds up in the 4th Bourne movie.
I was just going to say, he was a great sin eater. I love that scene where him and Renner, it's like, that's what we do.
He does a good job, but it's like, wow.
I don't introduce, he's running in the like pouring, watching the DC rain, like 4 o'clock in the morning.
It's like there's no way this is where you anticipated your career going 10 years ago. And listen, to be fair, he's kind of got it back. He was in Birdman. I liked him in that. He got nominated for an Oscar. He was in the second Knives Out movie. He's good in that. He was in A Complete Unknown a couple years ago. Got another Oscar nomination. Seems like he'd be getting another one for The Invite this year. Maybe a win, potentially. So he's got it back. But, like, this was a dude who was in the Leo Brad Pitt, like, could have been a big movie star. And his career did not play out the way because he wanted all of it. He wanted to be the star, and he wanted total control, and he wasn't really, he was uncompromising. He got that reputation of hard to work with. He's the guy, like, sometimes you got to just play ball a little bit. Or else you spend 10 years where you, like, make no big movies.
Have you ever seen Death to Smoochie?
I don't think I have.
It's actually pretty funny. It's like a black comedy where he's like a Barney the dinosaur type of guy. But, like, he kind of blows up and is, like, the backstab. It's, like, pretty funny. Like, it was in that. It was kind of in
man.
The Peter Run, 2002. It was that. But Jon Stewart's in it. Yeah, Danny DeVito. There was another funny movie. It was like a comedy term where he's like a priest, and there's like he's falling in love with his best friend's girl or something. Oh, it was Ben Stiller and him and God, I'll find it. I'll send it to you. I mean, it wasn't anything great or anything, but I do remember that where he's.
Oh, he's fantastic. He's fantastic. He's a great. And he can do a lot of different stuff. He can be a shithead. He can. That's kind of his best, I would say. Type roles. The other one I had, R.I.P. Michael Madsen, who turned down the Travolta role in Pulp Fiction to do Wyatt Earp, and a couple years later was based within a couple years was doing direct to DVD, Redbox movies before Redbox movies. It's like, listen, man, when it's your window, you just gotta go for it. Like when that role is out there, you gotta take it and run with it. And he got his career sort of, back on track a bit. He wound up working with Tarantino and some more stuff, but that he was on a fast track and just go off track. The other one, I guess sort of stick with it and wait your turn after initial failures and maybe it'll come good. The double CIS NCIS duo of Caruso and Peterson.
Oh yeah,
where Caruso jumps off NYPD Blue when the show is built around him, and he's freaking incredible. Those first 7-8 episodes of NYPD Blue he's in are unbelievable. It's like The Wire type, sort of not like that. Not that degree, but it's really freaking good. And he gets knocked off that, and it takes him a while. Eventually, he gets it all back. Let's say wherever he makes gajillions of money. But that really knocked him off course for a while. And then Peterson, who's in To Live and Die in L.A. and Manhunter, and it's like this dude is a superstar. I mean, he's working with Michael Mann and Friedkin, and apparently he turned down Goodfellas, turned down Platoon, because he didn't want to do the all the training that they did for that. Could never nail this down. There was rumors he had a potential role in Heat and didn't do it. I wonder if that was maybe the Sizemore role, maybe. But he had opportunities, and again, he got it back, with NCIS. And all that. My version of this question, Safe, is what will be the lacrosse version of this? What is who are the lacrosse coaches to where it's man, I thought you were going to be the guy, and it just sort of veered off track, and you've got to help the younger coaches.
I mean, maybe a bit of a case for Daly at Brown. I remember we worked hard. Daly shot us in 2016, and then he got the job and just got it. It didn't happen.
Never got it.
So, Keeping the Faith. That's the stellar Ed Norton movie. It was his. It was Norton's directorial debut. Mike Daly would be one. The coach.
Amplo was one for me.
Petro. I mean, maybe probably it's going to be weird to say for a Hall of Fame coach, but first half Petro, I thought it's going to be Bobby Scott. Don Zim 2.0, combined 2.0, just the run he had right out of the gates, just lost a little bit of juice, maybe comes back, maybe gets another job. Maybe one of those, like you said, in the wilderness come back, but maybe that's a little bit too harsh.
Petro cinched me just because he was
so high.
I don't know if, he got high enough, he had the success. The tricky thing for me is that, and I don't think there's anything different he could have done. Maybe you would say, I think he's happy with how it's turned out. When Petro left Hopkins, he was 53. Think about how young, Petro's only 3 years older than Tillman, which feels it does not feel that way at all. It feels like he's 10 years older.
Yeah.
And I mean, Petro is
Cornell in 2000.
Petro's
graduated in 80. He graduated in 87, 88.
Yeah, Petro's only a year older than Lars.
He was essentially 30 when he got into Cornell. 30, 31.
Yeah, and it's at Hopkins he was in his late 30s at Hopkins when he won those titles. And I think you're right. Yeah, it felt like he was going to win 5 or 6. And I do think it's a bit of you gotta, again, kind of the uncompromising thing of he probably needed to relinquish control of the defense sooner. And if he had done that, considering how he did fix the offense. Like him and Bob, because the offense kind of built after the Harrison teams and Rabel teams and the Pisers left. The offense kind of fell off, and he got it. They got it back with like Brown and Marr and the Stanwicks and all those guys. But the defense, his last 6 or 7 years, you talk about it.
Like
aside from 2018, never really never really had a great defense again after that. That was like the 1 year. Otherwise, it was always the defense was kind of you always mention those tournament losses, giving up 14, 15, 16 goals. So yeah, just kind of being willing to maybe because it doesn't feel like Hopkins should have been his last job. And I'm not saying it will. I think he probably will get one more shot, but maybe he won't. Maybe he's. I know that he wants only a specific type of job, and I'm not saying he should have taken. I wonder if he winds up not getting another head coaching job. Maybe he's totally happy with it, but I look at if you were him, would you have taken Penn?
Yeah, if it was offered.
Yeah, I don't know if it was offered. I don't think it was.
The one I think he's got to take, and it's just maybe I'm just too close to it. Is Rutgers?
Oh no, he would 100% take. If Rutgers opens, he's gonna.
I was gonna say that's the one for me. Like the Italian side of him, it just makes sense. You need the recruiting angle is the face that kind of be get just 2 young boys for assistant. I always say the assistant's got to be hungry young. Just that's all they do. And then not figurehead, but that kind of role and more in the recruiting and overall scope. But yeah, if you had to get offered Penn, I think you take it because it's an Ivy. Maybe the money may not be as different, or as from a Syracuse assistant or North Carolina assistant to head coach at Penn. But I think to get back in the game and get, but that's the thing. I agree. I think he wants to be in a certain place where it matches.
I think he wants. He said it when he left. It was he wants a Big Ten or ACC job.
Yeah, I don't think third or fourth team, the Ivy, is really going to move the needle for him for what he wants to. I think because if he was willing to take Penn, there's dozens of jobs that would.
I don't know. How many jobs? Penn is the best job that's opened. If you don't count Virginia, which got filled.
Oh yeah, no, I meant mid-major as they were opened.
Well, no, that's the thing. I think Penn's meaningful. I think Penn is meaningfully different than taking. I think Penn is different than taking Brown. I think Penn is different than. I think Brown does have a pretty good track record too. But taking Penn to me is much different. I'm trying to think of another job that's open. I'm not saying he should have taken St. John's.
No, I don't think in a pitcher league.
But Penn to me, I don't know. I don't think he should.
Maybe Navy. I can see maybe Navy.
So that to me is good. Should he take Navy? Because I think he should take Navy.
I think so. Just him in the military type thing. He would have a game on one of the shows.
He still has sway, and he still has a brand in the state. That if he gets that job, it becomes a thing. He can draw attention to that program that they need. If he gets that job, he's still relevant in the state of Maryland. He's still relevant in the lacrosse world, but he gets them on the map again immediately if he gets that job.
Definitely, I think the money's good there. Really good. Maybe I think number one in
lacrosse. The top definitely
got
top
the facility 5. Coming through. I think that I think he's obviously got the respect for the military. They always got the military dedication hats on. I think he would thrive in that environment. Yeah, Big Ten, Navy is a job. I don't think a Loyola or something like that. Maybe it's just so close to Hopkins. I think maybe he gives you a little bit of that distance. Yeah, any Ivy or any Big Ten or ACC job open
he definitely took it.
Definitely, it's not even. He's already on the plane.
This job's just hard to get. I think Amplo is another one. Like Amplo felt like
Oh, yeah.
when Amplo took the Navy job, it felt like either one, he was going to turn Navy into like, he was going to be there for a while and have like a Richie Meade type run, or he would use it as a launching pad to get to like the Big Ten of the ACC, or like, I mean, he's right there with like, I mean, he's so tight with Danowski. It felt like he could been in that mix potentially. And now it's like, yeah, his stock is not what it was. I mean, again, it's hard to. He got Marquette a home game in the tournament, and then they got back in the tournament again the next year as a program, 3 or 4 years. And go back to what he done at Hofstra. I mean, he was a huge. Michigan went after him hard.
You said our other guy that I was thinking. The school. Big Seth.
Yeah, Seth. Yeah, Seth had. I mean,
had a moment. 2006.
Then his first 4 years at Hofstra, made the tournament every year for like first 4 or 5 years at Hofstra. He was in the tournament every year. That's another one. Yeah, I mean, he felt like he was one of the big names in the sport for sure. When he was at Hofstra, he was attached to a lot of jobs that kind of opened. He was definitely seen as like a next, name, and it didn't happen. For sure. All right. I think we got one more. Okay. This is from our pal Markart. He wanted to know our thoughts on the physical media apocalypse that has been going on for a decade now, and the recent self-inflicted shotgun wound to foot courtesy of Sony, which is Sony has announced that they are physical disc production for new games for PlayStation consoles is ending in January 2028 for all new games. So starting in a little over a year, they will no longer make actual physical discs for video games. Yeah. So, Safe, do you have any thoughts on the physical media apocalypse?
Yeah, I haven't played games for bits.
Or in general, just like DVDs.
But I definitely have thoughts. It feels like just another example of the extraction economy. If you can't buy it, you don't own it. You're essentially just renting it from them or licensing it from them. The integrity of the product that you buy can be changed at any point in time. Like tons of scenes of 30 Rock, was Always Sunny, in hindsight, maybe against the culture. And I've been removed. I'm not saying like I'm like an artist, like how dare you? But it's just like that is weird because at any point in time, just whatever needs to be changed for some reason, thing that you actually have owned is just it's missing a scene or it's missing something. So I was like, that's kind of weird, 1984-ish type stuff. It feels like unmitigated greed. Like there's a part of me that's just like, for a long time I had the wired headphones and I wasn't against the wireless. It was like, oh, this is great. I don't really need it. The wire. And it's like still anybody who has wired headphones, remember sometimes you have to like bend it when it was like starting to deteriorate. And so hold it out longer.
I've gone back. Safe. I've gone back.
Yeah.
I have like I had AirPods for a minute and then like they stopped working kinda and I was just like I'm not, and I just got myself a cheap pair of like wire, like literally just like $15. I was like, yeah, this works fine. I'm cool with this.
It's a 2 point. Like one point for me is like when I got the S21 like 5 years ago, like there was no jack, so I had to get that. And then like I joked around with Alexi like a week later after I got the AirPods. I was like, what was I waiting for? This is great. So it is a part of that, but this is like it just kind of turns the other side. Like they've removed the jack from iPhone, I guess did it first for the headphones to force you to buy the AirPods because it's easier to lose the AirPod. You lose one, and just like now you're just constantly buying. So it's just like Sony, which always kind of had a good rep. I always felt like when I was a kid, like PlayStation was almost untouchable in terms of like cultural, the importance. Like even though I was with Xbox, but playing on PlayStation is a good product. I would trust the Japanese companies, like really good games and stuff like that. It's just solid. It doesn't break down. Like, you got to buy another one like 7 months later. Like, people have PlayStations for years and years and years. And it's just like now it's just kind of like a end of that model of like bringing value to you, and just like we're just trying to get as much as we can, as quick as we can. Like,
That's the thing that kills me. It's like it's not just like you have to buy this thing. It's to like everything ancillary that only like supports this one thing. To where it's like kind of like with like the iPhones or like the phones where it's like after like 3 years it just the battery starts like stops like working as much. You have to go buy a new phone. It's like, well, what if you just like, why like why not just make the battery work for longer? What if it like
or removable, like you
exactly
like get a new battery.
exactly like why do I have to buy a whole new thing?
Why do I have to update every single app? I barely use the apps. I'm the crazy about like just getting my bills. So I love doing the same day because I just want it out of my account. It's like, here, take the money. It's just like, but it's just like that's all I use to view what I got, the balance, to see how much I'm going to send. That's it. And they're like, oh, you got to update the TV, great new features. I was like, I don't want your. It's like saying like no new friends. I don't want. I don't need old friends coming back. I just need current friends. That's it. It's like I just needed the app to work as it's currently working. I don't need this thing. Well, you can just connect it to your smartwatch. I was like, I just got this last week. I don't need to connect anything to the watch.
I don't want to. I don't want it. It's
you like, lose the memory space. It's just like a guy, like the scene of Star Wars, where the walls are closing in. It's like the amount of space you have. Like I was at 125.5 gigabytes in my old phone before I got the new phone. But it's just like each update, I'm like, you're killing me, man. You're killing me. Like my phone's not gonna work.
It's like with like these sports leagues and like the media rights deals, where it's like, well, we can get you can watch the game on Amazon or whatever, and you can get this totally different like I don't know, like Sky View or like the different like ways of watching the game or whatever. And it's like I don't want to have to go to a totally different place to watch the game. Like why? Like the WNBA to me is a great example of this. I've been watching some of the game because it's the main sport on right now, and I'm getting into it, and it's like I think Bill Simmons actually talked on one of his last podcasts. Like, there's like 2 different networks that are airing WNBA finals games. It's like what? The finals has 2. There's like what are we doing? Like no, I just want to turn to one network and watch the game. Like what? Like the NFL now, it's like there's a YouTube game on Wednesday, and it's like what happened to like at 1:00 on Sunday? There's the game. And then at 4:00 there's another game, and then that's it. Instead, it's like we got games there. It's like I didn't ask for that, And I get again, it's the physical media thing works like this. I am interested. Like, look, I get it. It's not a it's not as lucrative a business as it once was. The 90s, early 2000s, where it was such a massive revenue stream. I get it. I see that part of it. Though it's like there has been like a resurgence a bit, or revival a bit, with like movies, DVDs, with like the 4K and everything like that the past couple years. I wonder if with video games that doesn't happen in like maybe 5, 6, 7, or like another 10 years, where like I mean, they never got to a point with movies where they like stopped making DVDs. So I guess maybe that's the, I guess their point is like if they've stopped making them, maybe they're never going to come back and make them. But I wonder if maybe they don't, a little bit of time comes back around. But like, to me, it's like there is something to be said for like providing a certain service because it makes your, like, what happened to like doing stuff because it made your brand like look good?
Cool. Like, that's what Jerry said was like people just used to have cool jobs. It didn't matter how much money you made, just like no matter what, your job was cool.
Well, it's like that. Like, what happened to like it's like you were always a business. You were always in the business of making money. I understand that. I don't have an issue with that. I get it. But it used to be like part of how we made more money was that we did cool stuff. So people were like, this is awesome. I'll give you, because you made this 4K. You guys pump out the best DVDs. I'll go buy your other thing. Instead, now it's what you point the extraction economy of like, no, I'm not going to provide you with the cool thing I used to do because
charge you more for shit you don't want and make something you do want exorbitant.
Exactly, and it's like I'm like, what, again, like what happened to just like this is a cool thing, we're going to do it. Like,
well, it goes to your point. You're like, why? It's like it feels like millennials, like the cutoff generation. Like, there's no the engagement in video games, engagement in movies, even drinking and partying culture, like all that stuff. It's like because it's harder to do those stuff, and it costs so much more money.
yes,
So the only audience that they got left is like the millennials. So like the people coming up, you're just cutting off your nose to spite your face.
exactly.
Like you're not going to have a next, the ones to carry over, and it's just like
this gets to my point of like the I was thinking about this. What was that? The movie that the rom-com, the Monica Barbara One Night Only thing that came out. Where like the director was like, yeah, it turns out like people, they really just don't like seeing nudity or like sex scenes in like movies. It's like it takes them out of the movie. And it's like, and then like the reaction to this was like, oh, it's Gen Z or these people, they just don't like seeing this. I'm like, hang on a minute. The biggest TV show this year was like Heated Rivalry. And then before that, a couple years ago was Euphoria. Like, and you're telling me all of a sudden these people are like have become Puritans? It's like
exactly this cruise out there, like Game of Thrones had like a scene like a bad one, not even just like a consensual one, bad ones, and it's just like
I'm like, is this
number one show in America?
It's like, is this actually the case, or have you just convinced yourself through like test screenings, and you're like, all right, so we can't do it, so you just take it all the way? Then it's like, nope, there's not an audience. Well, you're not providing it.
And I think your point about like you going back to the wired headphones, if there is a revival of movies, all the stuff that you and I are talking about, the technology, it will be, but I think downshifting. Like I think you see more people with dumb phones, the phones without the internet. And you see more people with like, I want to have the wired, like, and I think if they do, maybe you see that in video games, it's going to be like, I want to play the old school Mario. I want to play Mario Kart. I don't need to play FIFA 2029 because I gotta get an avatar. I got a subscription model. I gotta pay for these the ones that are going to be popular are the quick games on your phone that are free. That's one of the things I've seen like massive growth in that in terms of like usage rates. Less of the ones where like you have to pay to like play. And I think maybe like old school games. No one's going to bring out like old school Nintendo or an old school Atari, but like the emulators, I can see them, getting more popular. Something on your computer that you can play that game, just off like what Netflix is kind of doing now. Like Netflix, if they're smart, make a deal with Nintendo, and just be like, play your Nintendo games.
And Netflix is doing this too, of like actually like putting movies in theaters.
I love that.
You had the idea of like an actual Netflix theater, where you like. I feel like that's but to me, it's also like. These streaming services, they're not successful. I mean, some of them are, but like Peacock is not successful. Some of the other ones like HBO Max, maybe it's gotten there. I don't know, but like the successful ones are Netflix, Amazon Prime, I guess to a degree. Maybe Apple.
You see it on the Samsung TV is like YouTube, which is probably really the most popular, and will be the 100%. Biggest, and the one that doesn't have the least operating costs because it's just like we're doing it for them, right now.
Exactly. But to me, it's like
we're doing YouTube's job right now.
Exactly. My thing of like, all right, so like if this isn't working, this does to me. I'm not saying this means to like if we just went back to video stores, it would be a big thing. Though I think maybe it's worth trying, but it's like, all right, why not like build something into your, if people aren't going to like your service to like watch all this stuff, what if you like built into your like also like here's some Tubi is one of the most popular ones because it's free. I think Pluto TV is pretty popular. And it's like, what if you like built in an option, like Netflix again? I don't know if Netflix has to do this, they're super successful, but some of these like. Of just giving people things to like watch, like okay, like this is what Pluto TV has. You can literally just go like find a channel and watch something. Like I think this could actually be like a thing to them to like do to be like, yeah, instead of you like mindlessly scrolling for like an hour and then be like, wow, there's nothing on here, I'm going to cancel your service. What if you just like, had channels like TV and just be like, all right, we'll just click here and we're just showing these movies from our inventory that are on. Because again, it's like only a certain number of these are actually working. It's like it's not as like again, Peacock wasn't successful. HBO Max, I think maybe eventually. I mean, it definitely at the start though. It was like the least usable. So yeah, we have a lot of takes, a lot of thoughts.
Yeah, no, because like they don't care. It's like they don't care about making more money. Even they're just like, what increases the stock so much more?
It's
And
like,
that's how I get my compensation. And I don't even predict I'm going to be here more than 2 years. So like, let's just pump this up and I'll bounce.
Like the instance of like this is like the NFL with like the halftime show this year and like how like I'm like the NFL is like the last institution left that is like we want you to give us your money. Do you know how we judge that do you know how we think you're going to give us more of your money? We're going to put out a good product that we think appeals to you. Now again, they're not innocent either. The whole like Mr. Beast YouTube thing was like a atrocity. But like it's like it's like the last like actually efficient institution, like the last elite institution that functions in a actually like proper way of like, yeah, we want everyone to watch football.
Yeah, we just want you to watch our product, please.
Exactly. It's like what happened to other institutions? They're like, yeah, we just want you to we want you to give us your money, so it's going to be good.
And it's like
that's it. Make it good.
So short-sighted because they always say, we've got to do everything for the shareholder, for the public companies. I was like, the shareholders don't want you to like crash the company into the mountain, like it's just like
so then you can sell it. So then you can sell it and make
yeah, like, you can balance it like it's just like there's no even. It's a great line from Dogma or Affleck and them kill like the Disney type of executives, him and Damon, because they're like, the worst thing about it is like you don't have any fear, you don't believe, it's about God, obviously. It's like that's what makes humans humans. Like there's some fear of like that's kind of just a line, I guess, a little bit was getting at. It's just like there's no fear, like people just stop doing it. Whatever is your product. Like I told you, there was a point in time HBO Max said they're like, oh, things just going up like $3.99. I was like, I'm gone. And it was just like you were like, this is like when Cronkite lost faith in the Vietnam War. It's just like when I cut cable, and I didn't even have a problem beef with Xfinity. I just like, why am I not $50 for like shit I'm not even watching? Most of the time, I'm just like on my phone and just YouTube's on in the background. So I just cut it off and just like didn't even think twice about it. Yeah, I'm late to that party, but like just like there's like no fear that's like. What if the customer just stops using our shit? Like
that's how it used to work.
Yeah, eventually there's going to get to a point where just like if something's too costly or just like economy dips just a little bit, that like en masse people are going to just like people en masse cut cable. Like again, I was a little bit late to that, but it's just like all of a sudden cable companies that were like charging whatever they want every single month, like they can't do that now. They're like, oh, it's dwindling, kind of dying, got to diversify. So it's just like. That could happen with video games. If someone puts out like what we were talking about the EA Sports' college football game was like an atrocity. Like even like people like sponsored by EA Sports were like, I can't. They sent their money back. Like I can't. I don't know what it was. I think it was also like the subscription type thing, like no physical copy of it. But it's like the EA had to like back up. Like I could see GTA be like, you know what, we can sell this for $150 because like in their mind it's just like. We would rather have 100,000 people pay 4 times the price. Than 5 million people paying $50 or whatever.
That's my worry is that because I do feel like so much of this is like a bubble that like eventually is going to burst.
Sports? Oh, I've been on that one.
But my worry is that like the next step isn't like a downscaling, but it's something like Bill Simmons brings this up all the time. He's like, what if the next step instead is people being like, like dynamic pricing for like movies, where if instead, which like I don't want to put this out there because it's an awful thought, but like it is awesome that people are going back to like the movie theaters and like big numbers now. But like part of what's driving that 100% is like the premium format, like the IMAX and the 70 millimeter. And so like, what if like again, there definitely is like a bubble at which this thing can't go on, and like you can't keep expecting, like you mentioned, you can't expect like Gen Z younger people to be like, um, like paying exorbitant fees, and then like as you said, like everything is just silent until like there's one group of people or that can actually afford this. But like, what if instead the next step is like, all right, well, there is an audience for this thing, so we're just gonna do like you get to pay $100 or whatever something, and like you lock in your seat and your consent whatever, and like you you get to be there for like he goes more into depth with it, uh but something along those lines for like opening weekend tickets, or that it becomes more eventized, like movies, because movies are still like I mean, look, it's still again, I went to like I saw one, I've seen a lot of movies this summer, but like one of them went, and like I don't know how the hell this was the case. Maybe it was the actual cinema that it was like the the chain that I went to, the theater. But like the popcorn was like $10, and I was like, what? I actually did like a double take. I looked at the cashier. I'm like, what the what? I'm like, are you serious? Like, I had to, this poor guy, but I was like, are you joking? Like, what, $10? Like, so like it had everything has gotten more expensive, 100%. But it's still generally like compared to like how much I paid for my World Cup ticket, like
Well,
it's like
that's like the movies are like one of the last
exactly.
middle class. Like, think of where can you go anywhere? I guess at Borders for 2 hours and spend less money than you would at a movie. Like, not like a public space where you're like, well, I guess yeah, you can walk for at the mall, go for a walk at the park, or exercise, something like that. But even
Yeah,
exercise, but gym, costs money for
gym membership.
monthly.
Yeah.
Like, that's why I was so joking with my buddy with like about Christmas time in New York. I was just like, it seemed like it was just crazy or packed this last year than it was previous. He's like, oh, really? He's like, I was like, maybe I just didn't notice, but it's like they even like were opening up a part of the actual Avs where both sides they were like walking. I think it was mostly on like 7th and 6th and 5th. And I was just like, it just seemed like a lot more people. And then we were talking about it, and I was like, that's probably it. I was just like, there's not many things that don't cost money in New York.
Exactly. Yeah.
Except for like Christmas, like walking around and Rockefeller Square. So it's just like, yeah, this just makes sense. Like, people squeeze out everywhere else. They gotta like go more to ones that are like affordable or more free. But yeah, for movies, like, yeah, like that's what we kind of was talking about, like lacrosse ticket sales. It's like for a family, if we're to go to a sporting event, there's probably besides, the sport's smaller than that, but like of the big popular sports or the professional sports, there's no game you're going to be able to get to take 4 kids, 4 people, and 2 kids and yourself, and get some food and have a decent time for less than $100.
And it's still,
at a lacrosse game.
at a movie theater, it's still like for a family of 4. I mean, it's still, if you're talking like concessions too, it's still we're getting close to $70.
Oh yeah,
and that's
squeezing you and more squeezing you.
And this gets to another point of like, I'm actually thinking of like doing like probably like the Cinemark, like the monthly ding, because like if I'm going like once or twice a month, it's in the end it'll probably be worth it for me. But I'm a single guy going twice a month. A family of 4 is not going to the movie theater twice a month.
Yeah.
They're gonna go, or like, and if they go, if I'm going twice a month, I might go. I've probably seen at least over 10 movies this year. I might, by the end of the year, I'll probably hit 15. If I'm going 15, 16, 17 times, you're the same. If we're going like 15, 16, 17 times a year, yeah, having like a $10 membership or something, that's like $100, but that probably in the end that will work out for me. But we're single guys, like like it's a family of 4 is not going 15 times to the movie theater.
It's like that meme where it's like that old guy talking about the bills and like the children's like student loans or something, and it's like a picture of like SpongeBob with like a baseball hat. It's like, this is what I spend my money on. Like, it just feels like, yeah, like you're talking to your coworker. But yeah, I just saw Odyssey again for the 3rd time. Fantastic. I actually went up to King of Prussia just to see it in 70mm. The gas and something like that. But yeah, I had lunch in Philly. I was able to come back home. It's a lovely weekend. He's like, yeah, I spent like $700 on my child's medicine or something.
Yeah, my kid had to go to the
another asthma attack, but and then inhaler's coming soon. Hopefully that kind of stuff. Yeah. Like, oh, okay.
Sorry about that.
But honestly, it was really great. You know, you really just see it. But
It
only
was.
70 millimeter. You know, that's how you can type it. You just go right back to 70 millimeter.
You did the format, man. You really got to see.
You don't know how much you're missing. You really don't.
You can see the whole.
I saw it in a regular IMAX and I thought it was, but no, it's 70 millimeters so much. Yes, it costs a little more. But
Oh man. Oh goodness. All right, we got anything else, Dave?
no, it's absolute cinema. This show
There you
is
go.
absolutely great.
There you go, folks. We answered your questions. We went all over the place, talked a lot of cross.
I feel like the end of like Layer Cake, you know, where they steal the money back, the other gang, and they're like, oh, it's just like old times, like, hey, just an old, like, you know, B&E, you know, 3-hour pod, summer like content. We're back, man. I'm ready for the season.
We're back. It'll be here before you know it. You know, just like in like 2 months. You know, like, once you get past Labor Day, you know, it's practically Labor Day already. You know, that's a couple weeks to Thanksgiving. That's Christmas.
I'm gonna see. I'll see Madeline in a couple of weeks, and like we'll talk about like, you know, maybe the fall real games. I'm like, oh, how do you actually get this through? You know, you're onto something. We're right into F-250. I got to send you another picture.
You just the idea of you just like passing Madeline on a jog and just be like, I got an idea.
Coach, I've already told Coach Mitchell about this. He thinks it's great.
Eventually, him just like dreading seeing you. He just starts taking alternate routes.
Dave, I said only text for emergencies.
He's got another idea for me.
Like, oh, names that count. There's only another season.
I hear you. Oh man! All right, folks. We will be back probably in, I don't know, maybe a couple more weeks. Recruiting will open soon, so maybe do a pod there. Should be getting some schedules soon as well. I think some schools have announced their like I think Ohio State released their like conference schedule, like the dates for each game. So we should be getting some schedules a couple weeks. We can talk that recruiting. We'll be back for them. Football be around the corner. Football is back soon, so that's exciting. Enjoy the last couple of weeks of summer here. Definitely still summer weather. So enjoy that. Go to the pool. Make a last trip to the beach. While you're at the beach, listen to this latest podcast. You can listen to it on YouTube or watch on YouTube at youtube.com/lacrosse-commission. Like the video, subscribe if you haven't already. Remember that during the season, we are live every Saturday after the games, breaking down all the action. If you listen to us on your regular podcast platforms, keep doing that. And we will see you out there. Stay hydrated. Make the lunch president.
There, folks.